Chapter 908. Han Shu was as tyrannical as ever. Each of his punches seemed to be able to shatter space, cut off the opponent's power, and cut off sound and vision. As a result, when Han Shu punched out, Lin Muyu felt her surroundings crack and become chaotic. She couldn't maintain her senses at all. Take it. Let's see how many punches you can take. Han Shu waved his iron fists in the air, and his fist energy rained down, heavily bombarding Lin Muyu's Dragonblood battle shield and divine wall. He laughed and roared. My heaven-shattering fist uses spatial divine power as its source, and the power of the planes is constantly stacking. The power of each punch is stronger than the last. I want to see how many punches you can take. Bang, bang, bang. Only the light patterns of spatial cracks and the deafening sounds could be heard in the air. But no matter how Han Shu attacked, Lin Muyu didn't fight back. Instead, she maintained a defensive posture. Not only did she use the Dragonblood battle shield, but she also used the power of the diamond body. Her whole body was as indestructible as a boulder. It's the 37th punch. Terralyn stood in the air next to Xiyin and said indifferently, Han Shu's power has accumulated to a very terrifying level. Right now, any of his punches can shatter a mountain. This is no joke. If Lin Muyu continues to defend passively, his internal organs will be shattered sooner or later. He's underestimating the heaven-shattering fist too much. It's not underestimating. It's the heaven-shattering fist and Han Shu's power. Xiyin's eyelashes trembled slightly. Although his power is strong, it's not above Han Shu's. But if he uses defense to exhaust Han Shu's spirit and power, his chance will come. Oh, is that so? Lake was also surprised. Clearly, Han Shu and Lin Muyu were both stronger than him. Even though Lake was a battle angel, he had to view this duel with respect. The soldiers of the Longdan army camp frowned as they watched the battle in the sky. They could only see the shadows of humans and dragons colliding with each other. The punches and the trails of the dragon flames were shocking. However, none of the soldiers of the Longdan army camp retreated because they knew that the person who was fighting with the powerful enemy in the sky was Lin Muyu, the Prince of Qin of the Empire and the real commander of the Longdan army camp. Even he was fighting with his life on the line. How could they cower in fear? Your Highness. Wei Chou swallowed a mouthful of saliva. He began to worry about Lin Muyu's safety. Situ Sun quietly sat on the dragon's back, ready to attack at any time. At the back of the Longdan army camp, the gates of Zhanlong Pass opened. Zhen Yifan and Su Er's troops entered the city to take refuge, while a large number of infantry and cavalry left the city at the other exits. Su Jiantao was quietly preparing a counterattack. Su Jiantao originally had 30,000 troops under his command. Adding the garrison of Lingnan province, he controlled close to 100,000 troops. In addition to the 10,000 soldiers of the Longdan army camp, it was enough to challenge the Blackstone Empire's army outside the city. Moreover, there was also the 25,000 well-equipped Xiyin Corps. At this moment, the situation on the battlefield suddenly changed. Everyone could only see a figure flying in the air, accompanied by Lin Muyu's low shout, "Heaven and earth, heed my command." Then, they saw Lin Muyu holding a frosty fist in her hand, colliding heavily with Han Shu's fist. Pung! The earth trembled, and the sound of the two fists colliding was deafening. This time Han Shu's attack was interrupted, and his fist trembled as he retreated tens of meters. He stared at Lin Muyu dumbfounded. This time, Lin Muyu's strength seemed to have undergone a complete transformation. Not only did she have the cold power of ice, but she also had the aura of a mountain. The formless elephant art combined with the astral arts was just that strong. Lin Muyu's figure suddenly changed, and she used the falling star steps in midair. Her entire fighting aura had completely changed. Relying on the advantage of her body being more agile than Han Shu's, who was riding on a dragon, she suddenly blasted out a fist from 3 different angles that contained the power of ice. Pung pung pung. The situation reversed. This time, it was Han Shu who was defending, while Lin Muyu took the initiative to attack. Sizzle sizzle. Han Shu complained incessantly. God knows where Lin Muyu's strength came from. Every punch seemed to be plated with a layer of steel. At the same time, a layer of frost had already begun to spread on Han Shu's wrist, and even his nerves were starting to feel numb. If this continued, he might not be able to use the sky-shattering fist anymore. Therefore, Han Shu had to use a portion of his divine power to melt the frost. Beads of sweat began to drip from his forehead. Pung pung pung. Lin Muyu's attacks became relentless, to the point that the spectators with lower cultivation could no longer see his figure. All they could see were streaks of frost blooming in the air. Finally, with a buzz, a golden light bloomed, and the air shrieked. Lin Muyu raised his hands, and a resplendent elephant wheel was formed, and it went straight for Han Shu. Wishful thinking. Han Shu roared, and his fist swept out. The tyrannical sky-shattering fist shook the elephant wheel away, but at the same time, he couldn't help but spit out a mouthful of blood. A dignified divine king of the 58th Heaven Grotto Heaven was actually beaten to the point of bleeding. Lord Han Shu. A group of dragon knights rode on their giant dragons and approached. Many of them had already raised their dragon spears and were ready to rush to Han Shu's aid. Scram! Lin Muyu suddenly raised his head and looked at the group of dragon knights. The power of the formless elephant was contained in his voice, and a wave of divine power formed a powerful gale that locked the group of dragon knights in place. Everyone was dumbfounded. No one had thought that the legendary King Qin would be this powerful. They even felt a trace of despair. Don't come over. Han Shu waved his hand behind him and wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth. He said, "This battle is my destiny, as well as the destiny of the Black Rock Dragon Knights. Even if I die in battle, no one can break the rules of the Battle of Generals." Lin Muyu's gaze was indifferent. "Since that's the case, prepare yourself. Come." Han Shu raised his head, as if he was facing death with equanimity. "Lin Muyu, don't push your luck." In the distance, Bailey Qin roared. The sword in his hand was already trembling and humming. But Bailey Qin was too late. He was at least 300 meters away from the battlefield, and the area around him was filled with a strange force field. He was unable to break through space. Needless to say, that was the effect of Lin Muyu's formless elephant's domain. The surrounding air surged towards him. Lin Muyu swung his right fist backwards. His entire body was like a taut bow, and blue energy gathered on his fist. Ah! Han Shu's voice was trembling. The prelude to Lin Muyu's attack had already made him tremble. 100 fists of destruction. Han Shu unleashed his strongest move, his body exploding madly towards the sky. But Lin Muyu's attack landed at the same time. The 6 planets' tribulation. Boom. The light from the 6 planets kept attacking, like a baptism from the gods. Moreover, there were also elephant wheels within the light. There were 100 of them in total, and in the end, they merged into one and pierced through Han Shu's body. Pooh! Fresh blood sprayed violently from his mouth as Han Shu instantly fell onto the dragon's back. His divine walls were instantly shattered into pieces, and numerous tiny holes even appeared on his chest. His body had already been completely corroded and pierced through by the energy of the 6 glorious heavenly tribulation. The strongest Saint Martial King in the Darkstone Empire had died on the dragon's back with a whimper just like that. Even Han Shu's dragon let out a mournful cry. It had been heavily injured by the 6 planets' tribulation and the formless elephant's power, and it fell to the ground with Han Shu's corpse. In the air, a sacred Martial King's heavenly Tao lattice of the law of space floated there, glowing with a lustrous light. Lin Muyu slowly opened her hand and placed Han Shu's godhead into her pouch. On the ground, the tiger leopard cavalry and dragon riders were all dumbfounded. They could only watch as the vice-captain of the Blackstone Dragon Riders was killed on the battlefield. However, they should feel fortunate. Out of respect for Han Shu, Lin Muyu had left Han Shu's corpse intact. Otherwise, if the full power of the 6 planets' tribulation had been unleashed, Han Shu would probably have been reduced to a bloody mist. "It's your turn." Lin Muyu drew her Ice Origin sword and pointed it at Bailey Qin. She said, "Marshal of the Blackstone Empire, one of the sacred martial gods of the celestial pole continent, Bailey Qin, you must really want to kill me now, right?" "That's right. You've guessed correctly." Bailey Qin stepped through the air, and the sharp sword in his hand shone brightly. His face was expressionless as he said, "What a good Lin Muyu. You're decisive in killing. You killed my beloved General Han Shu in the blink of an eye. You really have some tricks up your sleeve." "Marshal, are you praising me? You can say that. Bailey Qin sneered. However, you only managed to kill Han Shu by relying on the supreme god force of your supreme godhead. Without this supreme godhead, what are you? Lin Muyu smiled. It seems like you've taken a fancy to my sovereign godhead. That's right. I wonder if His Highness King Qin is willing to part with it. That will depend on whether the marshal has the ability to take it. Arrogant. Bailey Qin roared. He didn't give Lin Muyu any time to react. He raised the sharp sword in his hand and slashed down. It was extremely fast, and a heavy feeling sealed off the surroundings. He didn't give Lin Muyu any chance to dodge. A true expert knew how to make full use of their strength, and Bailey Qin was such a person. She couldn't move with the falling star steps, but this seemed to be within Lin Muyu's expectations. If Bailey Qin didn't have such a method, he probably wouldn't be able to stand up against an expert like Longxi of the Thunderblaze sect in the Blackstone Empire. She raised her Ice Origin sword horizontally, and the sword's blade was wrapped in the dense light of the seven luminaries' celestial sword. Lin Muyu's left hand pressed against the sword, using her strongest strength to block Bailey Qin's attack. Clang! The two swords clashed, and Lin Muyu fell from the sky. Her body was dragged along the trajectory of the space, as though she had fallen into a huge net. After she forcefully stabilized herself in the air, the blood in her body was already in a mess. Bailey Qin was indeed an expert at the third level of the God Emperor realm. Chapter 909. Break for me. Bailey Qin roared and slashed 3 times in a row. Lin Muyu's diamond body and dragon blood shield were broken. Next would be the divine wall. Once the divine wall was broken, Bailey Qin's attacks would reach her body. Puffed! A mouthful of blood was spat out and turned into a blood mist in the air. However, it did not dissipate and hovered around Lin Muyu. On the ground, countless soldiers in the Longdan army camp were terrified. Everyone could see that Lin Muyu was no match for Bailey Qin. The difference in their strength was too big. Your Highness! Wei Chou and Situ Shui murmured at the same time. However, no one could intervene in the battle. The battle between Bailey Qin and Lin Muyu had almost formed a huge circular force field. Those who were not strong enough could not enter, including ultimate gods like Wei Chou and Situ Senior. Qin, if you don't help him, he might die. Marshal Bailey Qin will not show mercy. Terralyn glanced at Qin and realized that she was much calmer than she had imagined. Qin stood silently in the yellow sand. She looked up at the direction of Lin Muyu and Bailey Qin, but she could not see through Lin Muyu. She wanted to help him, but Qin could not feel the bond between her and Lin Muyu. How could she save someone she did not know? Moreover, they were in a battle of generals, so she had to follow the rules of the battlefield. For the sake of the Qin Empire, Su Jiantao appeared beside Qin and said, Master Qin, please help His Highness you. If he dies, the backbone of the Qin Empire will fall. Qin moved her red lips and took a step forward. However, she seemed to be hindered by something and her shoulders trembled. I can't do it. I can't do it, Su Jiantao. Why exactly? Qin's voice trembled. I can't submit to the fate that others have arranged for me. Sister Haiyan told me this before. I don't even know if I'm Qinin. Su Jiantao remained silent. In the sky, the collision between the two forces became more and more intense. The fifth element and the shapeless elephant technique fused together and heavily shook Bailey Qin's blade. However, Bailey Qin did not gain the upper hand at all. In fact, Lin Muyu's own spirit wall had already been destroyed and was starting to disintegrate. Rustle. Bailey Qin's divine power was strong. When he waved his sword, the fine sand turned into sharp blades and continuously cut open wounds on Lin Muyu's body. In the blink of an eye, her white battle robe was dyed red with blood. Why? Have you reached your limit? Bailey Qin laughed crazily. His sword once again struck Lin Muyu's Ice Essence sword. Dang! The Ice Essence sword that Si Kongyao gifted to her instantly shattered. The master's strength was not enough, and the result was the destruction of this sacred weapon. Ah! Lin Muyu looked at the shattered Ice Essence sword in the sky and felt a chill in her heart. She had underestimated Bailey Qin's strength. In terms of battle strength, Bailey Qin, who was an 87th level Grotto Heaven God Emperor, was probably above the Demon Emperor Nushi. If this is your limit, then you don't deserve to own the great land of the Shattered Cauldron world. Bailey Qin laughed loudly. You Qin people talk about burying your loyal bones in the mountains. Lin Wuyu, don't worry. After you die, I will piece your corpse piece by piece and bury it under the mountains of the dragon-slaying pass. I will let you live forever. However, I, Bailey Qin, will have to help you rule this land. Ha 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 ha. Is that so? Lin Wuyu suddenly smiled. The smile on his face was exceptionally coquettish. He suddenly rotated his palm, and the blood mist that he had condensed around his body was pulled up and danced into a ball. Thunder and lightning flashed around the blood mist. Even the entire sky turned dark and blood red. Finally, he decided to use the unique skill that he had just cultivated, the 8th style of the star technique, blood refining the firmament. Using the blood of a god to purify the firmament and cleanse all sins. The golden red blood ball in his hand was getting bigger and bigger. Lin Wuyu's strength was also increasing. The increase in strength even made Bailey Qin feel a little threatened. Oh. Bailey Qin squinted his eyes and smiled. This is getting more and more interesting. There is actually such a powerful martial technique in the mortal world. I really didn't expect it. However, do you think you can defeat me with this? Lin Wuyu didn't say anything. He swept his palm and the power of the blood refining the firmament whizzed over. Bang! Lightning exploded in the sky. Bailey Qin used his rock shield to protect himself. His rock shield, which was said to be as hard as a rock, was continuously disintegrated and cracked under the attacks of the blood refining the firmament. Ah! Bailey Qin was slightly startled. He hurriedly condensed even more divine power to repair his rock shield, but it seemed that it was already too late. Swoosh! The blood ball swallowed Bailey Qin and his sword. Furthermore, the blood ball grew bigger and bigger until it was as big as the moon. The surrounding soldiers of the two armies were forced to retreat by the tyrannical impact. Their faces were all pale. There were continuous explosions in the blood refining the firmament. Lin Wuyu and Bailey Qin were still fighting. However, the people outside couldn't see clearly what was happening. Situ Shui bit her red lips and said with a heartache, Your Highness is using your own blood to keep Bailey Qin in check. Your Highness. Wei Chou clenched his fists and didn't say a word. As for Terralin, Lake Zhou Shimin, and the others, they were all dumbfounded. Ever since they were young, they had been taught that the celestial realm was supreme. Those below the celestial realm were all ants. However, the scene they were seeing right now was completely different. Lin Wuyu and Bailey Qin's strength. Even in the celestial realm, wouldn't they be ranked among the top? Marshal. In the Blackstone Empire's army, a group of captaincy stared with their mouths agape. Bailey Qin was their last hope. If Bailey Qin was defeated, then the 200,000-strong army of the Blackstone Empire would be like a group of dragons without a leader. At that time, the consequences would be unimaginable. Pung. Finally, a corner of the blood ball formed by the blood refining the firmament exploded. Resplendent golden light shone from within. Following that, the entire blood ball began to collapse. The result was clear. Bailey Qin stood proudly in the sky like a god. He raised his sword and pierced through Lin Wuyu's abdomen. Lin Wuyu had been defeated. Everyone turned pale with fright. The soldiers in the Longdan army camp were even more terrified. Many of them were already crying. Your Highness, don't. However, Lin Wuyu wasn't completely unconscious. A bright moonlight flashed in her palm and landed heavily on Bailey Qin's shoulder. It was the falling moonstream. Yuwa. Bailey Qin spat out another mouthful of blood. He swung his sword and slammed Lin Wuyu's body onto the ground. Pung. Lin Wuyu's body was covered in blood as she fell onto the yellow sand. At the same time, blood splattered everywhere. Terralin, Xiyin, and the others were all stained with some of it. Your Highness! Wei Chou, Situ-san, and the others hurriedly rushed over. However, at this moment, a whimpering sound suddenly rang out from behind. It was Xiyin. Her flawless face seemed to be on fire as streaks of blood-red flames flickered in and out of nowhere. Lin Wuyu's blood had splattered onto her face. Ah! Xiyin was in so much pain that she whimpered. Her skin was burning inch by inch. The pain was unimaginable. However, she didn't know why this was happening. Why would Lin Muyu's blood resonate with the blood in her body? At that moment, Lin Muyu slowly raised her head and saw an unforgettable scene. The young girl was dressed in strange clothes. Her eyes were closed and she was moaning in pain. Her appearance and posture were exactly the same as the person she missed. Xiaoyin, is that you? Lin Muyu murmured. Xiyin gritted her teeth and energy surged from the depths of her body. She whimpered and an unknown power quickly broke through the limits of her blood and broke out of her body. They were golden chains, the God-binding chains. At that moment, countless images appeared in Xiyin's mind. The scenes of the past, the laughter, the crying, all appeared in her mind. She remembered everything. Die. In the air, Bailey Qin's voice sounded. He held his sword with both hands and descended. Pooh. The long sword pierced through Lin Muyu's back and pinned him to the ground. Blood flowed down the blade of the sword. Lin Muyu endured the heart-wrenching pain, but she still raised her head and looked in Qin Yin's direction. Tears flowed down her cheeks. Xiaoyin, don't Xiaoyin. Xiyin's body trembled and she suddenly opened her eyes. Instantly, the flaming eyes shone brightly and swept across the battlefield. She looked at the familiar scene in front of her and suddenly shouted from the bottom of her heart. Let him go, let him go. What did you say? Bailey Qin looked at her arrogantly. Wang. Xiyin's figure had already turned into a bolt of lightning. The stellar sword pierced through the air and slashed towards Bailey Qin's shoulder with unparalleled power. Pung. Xiyan's 7 slashes. The third strike, destruction. Even someone as strong as Bailey Qin was slashed and rolled on the ground, blood spurting from his mouth. Xiyin brushed past Lin Muyu, who was kneeling on the ground. The two of them stood back to back. Suddenly, a ray of light shone brightly. Lin Muyu cried out in pain. The God-binding chains in her body seemed to have been triggered and broke out of her body. The God-binding chains in Xiyin's body also responded to each other. The multiple God-binding chains in her body pulled and fused with each other, lifting their bodies up and binding them back to back. The resonance of their bloodlines triggered the resonance of heaven and earth. The light in the sky flickered. Is it really you? Lin Muyu's voice was weak. I don't know, maybe it's me, Xiyin replied, but her tears could not stop flowing. Tell me, quickly tell me, everything. Everything. Lin Muyu coughed violently and said, I have been waiting here for you, waiting for you to come back. Whether you remember me or not, I will continue to wait. I know the pain of the 6 paths of reincarnation. I will keep my promise to Emperor Father, and continue to wait. Whether you love me or not, you will always be my Xiaoyin. You are worthy of me protecting you with my life. Xiyin's mind instantly became clear. She had completely remembered everything. Silly girl, if you protect others like this, who will protect you? Her tears fell like rain. She cried and said, I am Qin Yin. I am Qin Yin. I remember everything. Lin Muyu, from today onwards, I, Qin Yin, will protect you. Chapter 9-10. The light of the God-binding chains gradually dimmed and retracted back into their bodies. With a rustling sound, Lin Muyu's feet touched the ground, but a wave of dizziness came over her. Her injuries were too severe, and she fell down. Qin Yin hurriedly turned around and hugged him, but she didn't dare to look at Lin Muyu's eyes. Xiaoyin. Lin Muyu forced her eyes wide open and said, Let me look at you. No, you don't want to see me. It's okay. No matter what you become, you will always be my Xiaoyin. Lin Muyu coughed violently, and her whole body trembled. Qin Yin slowly turned her face, and a pair of blazing eyes with golden flames floating in them looked at her lover blankly. But what she didn't expect was that Lin Muyu could actually look her in the eyes. In fact, Lin Muyu was also indescribably amazed. The blazing eyes was a kind of domain power, and the feeling of burning one's soul was not pleasant to anyone. But the invisible elephant art that Lin Muyu cultivated was also a domain power, and it was a divine art that came from God Emperor Fuxi of the sky beyond heaven. As long as Lin Muyu used a bit of the invisible elephant art, she would naturally be able to look Qin Yin in the eyes. Actually, this kind of eyes is also very beautiful. Lin Muyu smiled. 2 lines of crystal clear tears fell from the blazing eyes. Qin Yin hugged Lin Muyu tightly and said, Thank you. Thank you. At this time, Terralyn walked forward and put one hand on Lin Muyu's arm and said to Qin, I don't know if it's better to call you Qin or Xiyin, but I'll call you Xiyin for now. I'm used to it. Terralyn? Go. Terralyn nodded and said, I'll take care of him. You go kill Bailey Qin. Bailey Qin is already injured, so you can't let him escape. Otherwise, he'll definitely take revenge. You and I both understand the principle of exterminating evil. If we don't kill Bailey Qin today, I'm afraid we won't have another chance like this in the future. Qin let go of Lin Muyu's hand. Light circulated in her palm and gathered into the shape of a stellar sword. She said softly, Big brother, you, wait for me here for a while. Lin Muyu lowered her head and did not speak. After being severely injured by Bailey Qin, she did not even have the strength to speak. Kill. Su Jiantao and Wei Chou raised their swords at almost the same time. The army madly charged towards the Blackstone Empire's army. In the midst of the chaos, a golden light blossomed. It was the eyes of the blazing light colliding with Bailey Qin's domain. Immediately after, tens of sky dragon crystals fell, and Xiyan's 7 slashes swept across the battlefield. Lin Muyu and Terralyn stayed where they were, watching the battle from afar. Before the 50th round, a heart-wrenching wail came from the sky. It was Bailey Qin's voice. Pieces of broken rock walls fell from the sky like rain. This meant that Bailey Qin's godly power was already disintegrating. After another 50 rounds, the clouds in the sky exploded with a shocking light. A figure fell from the sky. It was Bailey Qin's body, but it was headless. Pa. In the energy screen that shattered the void, Qin appeared beside Lin Muyu, holding Bailey Qin's head in her hand. Give it to me. Terralyn demanded. Qin nodded her head. A few seconds later, Terralyn carried Bailey Qin's head and flew into the sky. She raised the head high and said with a voice as loud and clear as the descent of a deity. Bailey Qin was cruel and vicious. He has been killed. Soldiers of the Blackstone Empire, give up resisting. You have already lost. Originally, the more than 200,000 soldiers of the Blackstone Empire had the upper hand. The Tiger Leopard cavalry had charged forward and killed many soldiers of the Qin army. However, after Terralyn's shout, they immediately lost their will to fight. Bailey Qin was not only the Blackstone Empire's marshal, but also one of the 2 sacred martial gods. He was the military god of the Blackstone Empire and the symbol of military strength. Now that Bailey Qin was dead, the mountain of the Blackstone Empire's army had collapsed. In the next moment, the army collapsed. Sounds of killing could be heard from afar. It was Xiang Yu and Ding Shi's army. The plains in front of the dragon slaying pass were like a large net. Now that the net had been opened, all that was left was to catch the fish in the net. Wei Chou looked excited. He raised his sword and led the Longdan army camp to charge back and forth. How many days had it been? He had been enduring the pressure of being hunted. Now he could finally fight back to his heart's content. Dust flew everywhere. The area within a radius of 10 kilometers had been turned into a battlefield. It was difficult to distinguish between friend and foe. However, as long as they saw someone wearing the black armor of the Blackstone Empire, they would start fighting. In the beginning, the Ashen Flame Army and the Sea Mountain Army were still able to resist a little. However, when Ding Shi and Xiang Yu's troops joined the battle, this kind of resistance was weakened. The dragon knights in the sky kept circling around. From the beginning of the slaughter, they were unable to do anything. Even Terralyn Lake and the others joined the battle. It was rare to see a battle angel killing a dragon knight. Qin was full of guilt. She didn't think that Terralyn Lake and the others had already made the decision to help the state of Qin fight against the Blackstone Empire. If the various gods of the Western Divine Realm were to find out, her family would probably be implicated as well. You come with me. Qin put Lin Muyu's arm on her shoulder and flew up to the dragon-slaying pass. She sat down at a gap in the battlement that had been destroyed by the stone torch carts. She nestled in Lin Muyu's arms and gently opened her palm. The warm power of the law of light permeated the wound like a warm sun. Immediately, Lin Muyu's wound began to stop bleeding and quickly healed. She knew that Lin Muyu wanted to see this battle with her own eyes. This battle was related to the future of the entire Lingnan, and the survival of half of the country. However, what Qinin didn't expect was that Lin Wuyu didn't look at the battle below the city wall. Instead, she looked straight at her. Immediately, Qin Yin's face turned red. "What's wrong? This time you're not leaving, right?" Lin Wuyu asked without much confidence. "Yes, I'm not leaving. What is the Western Divine Realm like? Is that the last reincarnation of the heavenly Tao?" "Yes." Qinin gently nodded and said, "Sister Hyan said that as long as I remember everything, it means that the 6 paths of reincarnation is over and I can be a new person. You're not completely a person now, but a god." Lin Wuyu looked at her attire and smiled. However, this smile affected the wound and she couldn't help but let out a cry. "You're too careless, don't move." Qinin frowned slightly and used a dagger to cut open the armor on Lin Wuyu's abdomen. After applying medicine, she tore off the white skirt of the Western Divine Realm and carefully bandaged it for him. As she bandaged it, her heart felt like it was being stabbed by a knife because she saw that there were many crisscross scars on Lin Wuyu's body. He had been guarding the Great Qin Empire for so many years. God knows how many times he had been injured. "Xiaoyin." "Yes." "Don't cry." Lin Wuyu struggled to raise her palm and used her dirty fingers to wipe away Qin Yin's tears. Instead, there were 2 gray marks on her snow-white face. Lin Wuyu hurriedly put down her hand and pretended that nothing had happened. Qin Yin giggled and leaned her face on Lin Wuyu's chest. "I'm sorry, it's all because of my willfulness that you've suffered so much. You are indeed willful." Lin Wuyu leaned against the broken wall and said, "Your willfulness almost caused Lingnan to suffer a great disaster. Xiaoxi was criticized and suffered for so many years. Your willfulness almost caused the entire Qin Empire to be completely destroyed." "I was wrong." Qin Yin raised her face and looked like she was begging for mercy. "I really know I was wrong. I will always stay by your side and never leave you." "That's what you said. By the way, do you still remember that Xiaoxi went to save you in the ghost realm?" I remember all of it." Qin Yin nodded and her eyes turned red. "I owe Xiaoxi too much. The 3 of us don't owe each other anything." Lin Wuyu smiled slightly. "You give because you care. This kind of giving doesn't ask for anything in return. So don't feel guilty. If something like that happened to Xiaoxi, you and I would do the same." "Well, where is Xiaoxi now?" "Qihai Province. I don't know how the war is going there. That's the main force of the Tianji Empire." Lin Wuyu sighed worriedly. Qin Yin held his hand and said, "Brother Yu, Xiaoyin is back now. I will share the burden with you and Xiaoxi. We will fight the enemy side by side. We will definitely drive all the bandits out." "Okay. I've been in the Western Heaven Realm for so many years, so I know very little about the Shattered Cauldron world. Tell Xiaoyin about what happened in the past few years." Qin Yin sat beside Lin Wuyu and looked at the battlefield in the distance that was filled with smoke and dust. Lin Wuyu rested her head on her arms and let the warm sunlight fall on her body. She said with a smile, "Actually, not much happened. The Iha kingdom was defeated and fled to the dragon-shaped island in the East Sea. Brother Feng Jixing led the fleet to encircle them and returned in defeat. Then Wei Chou of the Longdan army camp fought with the demon race in the East region and spent 3 years to defeat the entire demon race and drove the demon race into the frozen polar lands in the north. Then the collision of the 2 spirit mountains caused the plains to merge. The celestial pole land pirates came and killed the demon race's demon emperor, Feng Ning-er and Feng Jing-er. Qianfeng was forced to lead the Central South Iron Cavalry to surrender to us. You should know what happened after that. Then this battle will be the true turning point." Qin Yin looked into the distance and said faintly, "I didn't expect this. I thought I would sink into hell, but after so many twists and turns, I finally came back here. I can come back to you again. This feeling of returning home is really great. It's a pity that people from home have come. Then ask them to leave." Qin Yin giggled. "Xiaoyin, you haven't told me about your eyes and your identity as an angel. What is going on?" Qin Yin suddenly thought of the various unbearable experiences in the land of exile and the Western Divine Realm. She immediately frowned and said, "Brother Yu, I don't want to recall these things for now. I'll tell you one by one in the future." Lin Muyu also knew that she must have experienced many painful memories, so he sat up and hugged her shoulders, saying, "Forget the things that you don't want to remember. It's good that you can return. This is really like a dream." Qinin was taken aback. She turned around and brought her beautiful face closer to Lin Muyu's. Then, she kissed Lin Muyu's lips lightly. She even bit his lower lip with a little force. "Ah. Is it true?" "It's true." Lin Muyu touched his lips. "It really hurts." The bite of the 50th paradise god wave. Qinin couldn't help but smile and gently hugged him, saying, "It's really good to be back by your side. Ahem, Xiaoyin, you've grown bigger." What a frivolous feeling, but Qinin also knew that such a frivolous person was the real Lin Muyu. In front of others, he had to put on the airs of the Qin emperor, but in front of her, he could be his true self without any scruples. Chapter 9:11. Late at night, the flames of war continued to spread in the distance. From Zhanlong Pass all the way to Linghan City, there were scenes of killing and killing everywhere. There were over 10,000 people in the Longdan army camp, plus the 100,000 people under Su Jiantao, Xiang Yu's troops and Xiyin's troops. In total, there were close to 200,000 soldiers, fighting a bloody battle with the 230,000 soldiers of the Blackstone Empire. Even if the enemy had lost their will to fight, it wasn't an easy task to kill them all. Perhaps this process would last for a week, or even a month. All the generals seemed to have a tacit understanding to not leave any captives. After the invasion of the Blackstone Empire, they would massacre most of the cities they passed through. In Linghan City alone, they had massacred close to 100,000 civilians. The originally prosperous Linghan City had countless villages and towns within 100 kilometers, but now, it had become a desolate and uninhabited land. There were even many places where the corpses hadn't completely rotted yet. The relationship between the Qin Empire and the Blackstone Empire was that of mortal enemies with no room for negotiation. Therefore, they wouldn't leave any captives. The Blackstone Empire was completely annihilated, and the order given by Lin Muyu was the same: leave no one alive. The remaining 20 or so dragon riders of the Blackstone Empire had already lost their will to fight. They flew away from the mainland and returned to the celestial pole continent. Meanwhile, the tiger leopard cavalry on the ground were gradually retreating under the sharpness of the magic crystal crossbows and white drill arrows. The outcome was already decided. At night, the Zhanlong Pass residence was brightly lit. Servants and workers came in an endless stream. Wei Chou left by Yin and a group of guards to protect Lin Muyu. Meanwhile, Xin was protected by Terralin, Lake, and the others. The officials of the residence prepared an extremely sumptuous banquet. Firstly, it was to welcome Lin Muyu, and secondly, it was to celebrate the return of the Empress Qin Yin to the world. After 5 years of implementation of the three kings ruling the world, it was finally time to change the national policy. The candles were brightly lit. Under the illumination of the lanterns, Shangguan Jingyue happily sat beside Qin Yin, reminiscing about the feelings of parting. Lin Muyu suddenly raised her head and said, "We have guests." His spiritual pulse art was very sensitive to auras. It was not until 3 minutes later that Qin Yin also sensed it. She couldn't help but stand up and smile. "Yes, Xiaoxi, we're going to welcome her." And 2 silhouettes flew out of the mansion and headed north in the night sky. From afar, it seemed that Tang Xiaoxi had also sensed the aura here. Lin Muyu took out a dragon crystal and used it as a light source. She could see Tang Xiaoxi from a few miles away. Tang Xiaoxi was stunned. She saw a girl in a battle angel costume beside Lin Muyu. She looked very familiar. Although her eyes were closed, she could still vaguely recognize her. "Xiaoyin, is that you?" Tang Xiaoxi asked in a trembling voice. Qin Yin didn't say anything. She just lightly opened her arms. "Ah, Xiaoyin." Tang Xiaoxi had mixed feelings. She quickly flew into Qin Yin's embrace. The 2 girls' figures created ripples in the air and rushed out for a long distance before stopping. Lin Muyu also flew over and said, "Xiaoxi, how's the 7 Seas province?" "The Longji Corps has been defeated." Tang Xiaoxi was still hugging Qin Yin tightly, as if she was afraid that she would accidentally fly away. She said, Commander Feng has instigated 100,000 wolf soldiers to join forces with our Cloud Pass, and defeated the 150,000 Longji army led by Feng Lan. Now that the Longji army has been defeated, I reckon that within a month, they will be chased out of Cloud Province by Commander Feng. That's great. Lin Muyu was relieved. Now the biggest threat was the 300,000 soldiers of the Tianji Empire led by Baiming Huan. She didn't know if there was a battle in the direction of Cangnan Province's steel wall. However, Tang Xiaoxi and Qinin didn't seem to be concerned about the battle. Instead, they were asking about each other's well-being. It would be a long story. Lin Muyu touched her nose. She felt that she was left out when the two women were together. She said, "I'm so hungry. Let's go back and eat while we talk, okay?" Okay. Tang Xiaoxi was hungry too. After flying for a day without any rest, how could she not be hungry? When the three of them reappeared in the banquet hall, all the officials left their seats. Everyone knelt down in unison and shouted, "Greetings, Your Highness! Greetings, Emperor Qin! Greetings, Princess Shi!" Lin Muyu and Tang Xiaoxi looked at Qinin with a smile. Qinin understood tacitly. She raised her hand slightly and said, "Everyone, please rise and continue to eat. There's no need to be so formal." Everyone thanked her. Lin Muyu supported Qinin and brought her back to her seat. Qinin could only close her eyes when facing these mortals. Otherwise, when she opened her flaming eyes, these people wouldn't be able to bear it at all. As an empress, it was natural for her to take care of the officials' feelings. Halfway through the banquet, there were hurried footsteps outside. Su Jiantao walked in wearing a blood-stained armor. He knelt down on one knee and said, "Greetings, Your Highness. You may rise." Lin Muyu greeted Qinin. "Marquis Songnan, how's the battle going?" "Reporting to Your Highness, I led an army of 100,000 to pursue the enemy for nearly 50 kilometers. There were 3 consecutive large-scale bloody battles, and we beheaded more than 70,000 people. As for Xiang Yu's and Ding Shi's troops, I don't know about them for the time being." 70,000 people beheaded. Lin Muyu smiled happily and said, "What about our losses?" Su Jiantao said, "More than 39,000 people died in battle, more than 10,000 were seriously injured, and more than 20,000 were lightly injured. I have returned, and the Deputy General will lead the army to continue the pursuit. May I request the Dragon Slaying Pass to immediately send rations to the front line?" "Got it. Go to the military supplies department to handle it." Lin Muyu frowned. "We actually lost so many of our own, inconceivable." "Su Jiantao, did you recklessly charge in and fall into the enemy's trap?" Su Jiantao hurriedly knelt down again. "Your Highness, please don't wrongly accuse me. I advanced step by step and fought steadily. However, the soldiers of the Blackstone Empire are all lunatics. Once they are forced into a desperate situation, they start to fight with their lives on the line. Moreover, their beast cavalry is really powerful. Our 3 cavalrymen fought against 1 beast cavalry, but we still lost 1 person in battle. This kind of battle loss is considered not bad." Qinin murmured, "The overall battle power of the Celestial Pole continent is indeed above us, especially in close combat. Even an elite force like the Longdan army camp can only fight them to a draw. If it were any other army, they would definitely suffer a loss." Lin Muyu nodded. "Pass down the order to continue the pursuit. No matter the cost, kill all the enemy in the Soaring Sky Province. Leave no one alive." "Yes." The old official Zheng Yifan stood up, cupped his fists and said respectfully, "Your Highness, since we have already recovered our lost land, then we should quickly send officials and guards to Linghan City and other major cities to guard. We should also put up notices to pacify the people and restore the administrative order of the Soaring Sky Province as soon as possible. Otherwise, the civilians will become rioters, and when that time comes, the bandits will run amok." Lord Fan is right. Let's leave this matter to Aunt Luo." Qinin smiled. Suyu said respectfully, "I understand. Please rest assured, Your Highness Yin." Zheng Yifan said again, "Although the pursuit of the enemy is still ongoing, this old official thinks that we should prepare for a rainy day. We should immediately transfer elite troops from each army to start training. Songnan province will soon have a big battle. If we wait until then to start training troops, I'm afraid it will be too late. What does Yifan think should be done? Qin Yin asked. Zheng Yifan said, our army in Lingnan has a total of 230,000 troops, but after killing the Blackstone Empire's bandits, the number of soldiers that can fight is estimated to be only half, which is 110,000. At the same time, the major cities in the Soaring Sky province need a portion of the garrison to pacify the people. We also need to leave a large number of troops along the coast to resist the attacks of the Blackstone Empire's pirates. Therefore, we can only use half of the remaining troops, which is 50,000 people. At most, Lingnan can only transfer 50,000 troops to reinforce the steel wall. This is the most difficult part for us. Qin Yin nodded and did not say anything. Zheng Yifan was an old official for 3 generations. At the same time, he was also a highly respected and intelligent official. Naturally, there was not much to worry about with this old fox in charge. However, they could not completely give him power. Regarding this, Qin Yin, Lin Muyu and Tang Xiaoxi had reached a consensus. Therefore, they had never given Zheng Yifan too high of a position and power. But now that there were so many things to be done, they had no choice but to use Zheng Yifan. Under the table, Lin Muyu held Qin Yin's little hand and motioned for her to speak. Qin Yin pursed her red lips and said, then this matter will be temporarily handed over to Duke Fan. Other than the troops in the Longdan army camp, which will be under Duke Wei's direct command, Duke Fan will be in charge of the rest of the army's reorganization. The commander of the new army will be Su Jiantao. Lin Muyu couldn't help but laugh inwardly. Qin Yin was too smart. She gave half of the power to Zheng Yifan and let him do the work, but not the actual power. This was the most brilliant part of her plan. Zheng Yifan nodded in thanks. In reality, he didn't want that much. Lin Muyu picked up a plate of deer leg in front of her, and sent it directly in front of Su Jiantao. She said, here you won the battle. This is your reward. Drink some wine after you're done eating, and immediately take your men to Linghan City. This city must be taken down as soon as possible. Su Jiantao accepted the plate with a smile. Thank you for the meat, Your Highness. Tang Xiaoxi frowned slightly and said, South Ridge can only contribute 50,000 troops, and Songnan Province's Qinyan has less than 100,000 troops. Feng Jixing and Chun Xiaoli can't split themselves, so they can only take out 50,000 troops at most. With a total of 200,000 troops, can they really stop Bai Minghuan's army of 300,000? Lin Muyu's gaze swept across the row of people on the right and said, this will depend on whether or not the battle angels are willing to help. Terralin laughed softly. I am Sheen's man, of course I am willing to stay and help. Lake said, I am also willing to follow Lord Sheen. Zhou Shimin nodded, me too. Terralin said, reporting to Your Highness there is another important matter. Lake has a crush on Lord Sheen. Do you want me to help you teach him a lesson? Lake's face was ashen, and he wanted to pinch her to death. Lin Muyu couldn't help but laugh. Ahem, there is no need for that. Everyone should be united against a common enemy. But at this moment, a battle angel stood up, performed the Western Heaven Realm's etiquette, and said, Lord Sheen, now that you have restored your identity as the Shattered Cauldron Realm's Empress, and I am a battle angel of the Western Divine Realm, we cannot continue to follow Lord Sheen. If I continue to follow you, it will mean that I have betrayed my faith and country. Qin nodded and said softly, Zakku, I know your difficulties, so I will not force you. After this meal, you can go anywhere you want. I will give you my blessings. If there really comes a day when you have nowhere to go, then come find me. The gates of the Qin Empire will always be open to you. Thank you, Lord Sheen. Zakku took a few steps back and knelt on one knee. The other 2 battle angels also stood up and expressed their withdrawal. They could not continue to help the Qin army attack the army of the Celestial Pole continent, or else they would be punished by the gods. Just like this, the battle angels under Qin Yin's command changed from 6 to 3. 3 lunatics who were willing to go crazy and risk their lives with her. Chapter 9:12. At night, the moonlight was tranquil. There were many quiet courtyards in the courtyard of the dragon-slaying past lord's residence. Qin Yin and Tang Xiaoxi, had arranged their rooms together. The two had been separated for too long, and the misunderstanding was too deep, so much so that they had too much to talk about. There was no sound in the quiet night. Only the faint chirping of insects could be heard from the distant fertile fields. The chirping was very melodious. The moonlight shone on the carved wooden railings of the corridor. Qin held a cup of fragrant tea in her hand. Unable to fall asleep, she stood quietly under the moonlight. She raised her face and felt the clouds in the sky. The bed is ready. Tang Xiaoxi walked out of the room and said in surprise, Xiaoyin, you still want to drink tea at night? Be careful, you won't be able to sleep. Qin smiled slightly, I won't. Besides, I'm used to it. It's the same whether I sleep or not. For so many years, I haven't truly slept a night in peace. Tang Xiaoxi walked forward and held her hand. Pouting, she said, reincarnation must be very painful, right? What kind of feeling is that? The body and soul are separated and burned. It can't be said to be painful. Perhaps it can only be regarded as a kind of understanding? Qin looked at Tang Xiaoxi and saw her face full of guilt. She must still feel guilty for killing her in the blood-red abyss. Qin held Tang Xiaoxi's shoulder and said with a smile, Silly Xiaoxi, don't think about it anymore. It's all in the past. This is what I deserve. If I don't do this, how can I atone in front of you? After all, Master Lan's death was caused by me. Grandpa. Tang Xiaoxi nodded speechlessly. After a long while she said, Grandpa is too selfish. He even ordered the descendants of the Tang family to attack Lanyan City and build up an army for himself. Everyone's standpoint is different. I've experienced a lot over the years, and I'm much more sensible than I was back then. I deeply understand that every time I instigate a rebellion, it not only brings about a change in the imperial power, but also a decade of disaster for the common people. Grandpa's death in Bailing City is a nightmare for me, but it's good news for the world. As she spoke, Tang Xiaoxi's red lips twitched, and she sat on the railing as she muttered, I'm an unfilial descendant of the Tang family for saying such words. But that's what I think in the bottom of my heart. Little Yin, you're the successor of the Qin family, and you have your own standpoint. I hate you for killing my grandfather, but I also understand why you did it. If you selfishly allowed the world to descend into chaos for my sake, then you wouldn't only be letting me down, but the entire world. But Xiaoyin, do you still blame me for what I did to you? I've heard about what happened to Yaoji. Qin said quietly, it's all in the past. We are good sisters, and we will never be separated in this life. We entrust our lives to each other, right? Tang Xiaoxi nodded heavily. Yes. I have nothing to worry about. For me, there are only two relatives in the world. One is you, and the other is Mu. Everything I do is for you. I'm good, Xiaoxi. Qin opened her arms and hugged her. Her eyes reddened as she said, it's just that Brother Ayu is stuck between the two of us. It doesn't matter. Tang Xiaoxi smiled faintly. Actually, I've already thought it through. The love and marriage of mortals in the secular world are already very far away for us. We are gods, destined to leave the secular world and ascend to the heavens. You love Mu, and I love her. Mu loves you, and maybe she also loves me. As long as we are together, it's fine. We have eternal life. What we should think about is not selfishness and possessiveness, but companionship and sharing, right? Qin nodded. You're right. I just don't know what Brother Yu is thinking. On the side, a person on a house not far away suddenly sat up. It turned out that he had long been lying on the roof, looking at the moonlight. Moreover, he was not breathing at all. In the entire Zhanlong Pass, perhaps only Lin Muyu could lower her spiritual sense to this extent. He smiled from afar. I'm different from what you think. Oh, how different? Qin asked with a smile. Lin Muyu gave 2 thumbs up. I want to marry too. After we succeed in the Shattered Cauldron realm and retire, I want to bring you 2 back to my hometown to see my father. I want him to see his 2 daughters-in-law. Then, I'll hold a grand wedding in Shanghai. Tang Xiaoxi giggled. Didn't you say that your hometown is monogamous? If you marry too, aren't you afraid that your hometown's imperial court will punish you with the law? If they really want to punish me with the crime of bigamy, then I'll just ascend. If they have the ability, They can go to the heavens to punish me. Humph. Qin Yin's pretty face turned red. She mimicked him and snorted. He's actually so self-righteous. It's really unbearable. Xiaoxi, let's go beat him up, okay? Okay. Two beautiful figures flashed and appeared beside Lin Muyu. One on each side, they held him down, looking like they wanted to beat him up. Lin Muyu complained incessantly. Back then, Qin Yin and Tang Xiaoxi didn't have high cultivation, so it was easy to deal with them. But now both of them were God King realm experts. Moreover, they still had a lot of hidden strength. Their strength was extraordinary. If it wasn't for the fact that his cultivation wasn't bad, both of his arms would have been twisted off. Taking advantage of the situation, Lin Muyu hugged the slender waists of the two beauties. Alright, if you keep messing around, I'm going to scream murder. The two girls' faces instantly turned red. This kind of joke was already extremely dirty to them. At this moment, Terolin's voice came from the room below. Hey, can you three lower your voices? A single dog like me has already suffered 10 trillion damage. Lord Xiyin, you have to be more dignified. You're our leader. Qin Yin's face turned even redder. Oh. Woo. Alright, stop messing around. Let's get down to business. Lin Muyu was still hugging the two beauties on both sides. This was probably the reward for all those years of hardship and pain. While feeling the fragrance and vitality of the two beauties, he said, Xiao Yin, I heard that you're already the Dark Moon Queen of the Banished Land. The entire Banished Land is under your control? Yes. Qin Yin nodded. But those memories of fighting and killing each other, I'd rather not exist. No, they can still exist. I've seen the weapons of the Xin Legion's soldiers from the Banished Land. They seem to be very advanced. How many of them are still in Dragon-Slaying Pass? Ah. Qin Yin was at a loss. You want to study these weapons? Yes. Lin Muyu reluctantly let go of the two beauties' waists. She clenched her fists and said, Technology is the #1 productive force. Forget it. You might not understand, but these weapons might affect the future situation of the entire continent. Xiao Yin, how many more Banished Land legions are in Dragon-Slaying Pass? They didn't participate in the pursuit. They've basically all returned. There are about 7,000 or so left. They're stationed in the Xin Legion's camp 3 miles west of Dragon-Slaying Pass. Can you two sleep? Lin Muyu asked. The two beauties shook their heads. Very good. I can't sleep either. Let's go to the Xin Legion. I want to see those weapons and equipment from outside the world. Okay. Xin Legion. Nighttime. 2 huge war chariots were parked between the tents. The searchlights at the front were constantly rotating and scanning the surroundings. On the chariots stood 2 soldiers armed with Origin submachine guns. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. 3 silhouettes descended together. Who is it? Halt. The soldiers raised their guns vigilantly. The people inside the tents also rushed out with cold weapons or broken firearms in their hands. All of them looked nervously at the intruders. Under the illumination of the headlights, the figures of Lin Muyu, Qin Yin, and Tang Xiaoxi appeared before everyone. So it's your majesty. The group of soldiers knelt down. Greetings, your majesty. Dispense with the formalities. Qin Yin raised her hand lightly. Go back to the tent and rest. I'm only here to visit. Yes. Qin Yin held Lin Muyu's hand. She smiled and said, All right, you can now examine these weapons and equipment. You can study any one of them in detail. Amen. Lin Muyu walked forward and said to one of the leaders, Can I see your weapon? How could the leader refuse? He hurriedly handed it over and said, Your Majesty, be careful. This is a heavy Origin rifle with powerful firepower. When used by a monarch rank expert, 1 shot is enough to kill a saint. Oh. Lin Muyu took the heavy rifle and studied it carefully. This kind of gun was similar to the guns on Earth, but the magazine was completely different. She couldn't feel a bullet enter the chamber at all after loading it. She asked, What's going on? What's the principle behind it? The leader laughed. Your Majesty, this Origin energy gun is different from ordinary guns. It doesn't rely on gunpowder to propel it, but rather, it needs to be charged with Origin power. You only need to pour a small amount of your power into the butt of the gun to charge it, but with your Majesty's power, just a small amount is enough. Otherwise, this gun will be useless. This leader had personally witnessed the battle between Lin Muyu and Bailey Qin, as well as the spectacular scene of Lin Muyu killing Fu Yu and Han Shu. The land of exile had always respected the strong, so he was naturally both respectful and fearful of Lin Muyu. Lin Muyu exerted force with one hand and slowly poured her supreme divine power into the origin rifle. As expected, the charging mechanism in the magazine began to flicker and brighten up before Lin Muyu's power had even reached 5%. Your Majesty, that's enough. The leader was astonished. The origin battery is about to explode. You can't go on. Oh, Lin Muyu returned the rifle to him and asked with a smile, do you know how to make this kind of rifle? I don't. The leader shook his head and said, this lowly one is just a mercenary from a remote star system. I only know how to use them, but I don't know how to maintain them. Oh, Lin Muyu was somewhat disappointed. She asked again, are there any mechanics in the army of exile? Mechanics? The leader was stunned. I think there's an old mechanic, but his strength is extremely low. He's practically a piece of trash. We've arranged for him to cook in the kitchen camp. His name is... This lowly one has forgotten. Lin Muyu looked as if she had obtained a treasure. She laughed in ecstasy and said, don't say anything else. Bring me to this mechanic immediately. Yes. He knew that the changes this mechanic could bring to the Shattered Cauldron realm might be equivalent to Qin Xiling's value. This mechanic and Qin Xiling, two mortals, could produce enough power to change the future of an entire plane. Chapter 913. Inside the kitchen. When almost all the banished army had fallen asleep, the kitchen was bustling with activity. Dozens of people were rapidly preparing the ingredients for breakfast the next day. The people from the banished land were like starving ghosts. They couldn't fill their stomachs in the banished land all year round. In the end, coming to the Shattered Cauldron realm was like going to heaven. The Southridge province was incomparably fertile, and there were countless resources. Every day they would eat white rice, meat buns, and meat dishes and soup until their bellies were round. Brats, go and carry that boar over. The old veteran shouted. Cut open its intestines and marinate it. We'll start roasting it at midnight. Our brothers will be able to eat delicious marinated meat in the morning. The group of young soldiers nodded and went to carry the boar. These soldiers were all handsome, and they could be considered pretty good-looking in the exile army. After all, they were the ones who cooked. If they were werewolves with scabies and ulcers all over their bodies, the food would probably be inedible. It was at this time that the leader opened the tent and walked in. Hey, what's your name again? I heard you used to be a mechanic? The veteran knelt down hurriedly. This lowly one is called Roger. They call me Old Roger. May I know why the leader is looking for me? Is the food not to your taste? I'm not looking for you. Someone is looking for you. The leader frowned and stepped aside. The next moment, Lin Muyu, Qin Yin and Tang Xiaoxi appeared in front of Old Roger. Old Roger was so excited that he almost breathed his last. He had seen the Dark Moon Queen more than once, but it was all from afar. He had never seen the Dark Moon Queen up close. He was so excited that he was about to explode. This lowly Roger greets your Majesty. He knelt down hurriedly and kowtowed repeatedly. Qin Yin closed her eyes and held Lin Muyu's hand with a smile. No need to be so polite. I'm not the one looking for you. It's my big brother Yu who's looking for you. Oh, it's your Highness Yu. Old Roger kowtowed again. May I know what your Highness Yu needs? Lin Muyu helped him up and said, you don't have to be so polite. Logically speaking, I should call you an old driver. Oh, that's not right. I should call you old master. Old Roger was flattered. Your Highness Yu, why are you looking for me? You're a mechanic? Yes, I've been a mechanic for a few years. During the Interstellar War, I followed the Federal Empire's fleet to battle once. But that time it was too tragic. We encountered an army led by two god emperors from the Northern Heaven realm. The entire fleet disappeared in an instant. An entire interstellar fleet can't defeat two god emperors? Those are two god emperors above the 90th level of heaven. Godly state experts can also survive in the universe and don't have to worry about air. Furthermore, they can travel through space freely, and can easily destroy our defense shield, and avoid the attacks of the particle cannons. Even the laser plasma can't penetrate their god wall. All they need to do is to destroy the pressure system of each battleship, and they can make us fall apart. Saying that, Old Roger sighed. The gap between mortals and gods is impossible to measure. What about thermonuclear weapons? Lin Muyu thought of the trump cards of many powerful countries on Earth. Old Roger couldn't help but smile. If your highness you thinks that thermonuclear weapons can penetrate the god wall, then you're lying to yourself. Moreover, the bodies of god state experts have been tempered and forged. Radiation is useless to them. But the technology of thermonuclear weapons is rarely achieved. How would your highness you know about it? My hometown is Earth, a planet in the Milky Way galaxy. Earth. Old Roger frowned. I think I've heard of it. That galaxy is still in the middle stage of development. Because of its remote location, it has avoided all the galactic wars. What a lucky person. However, if your highness you really comes from Earth, then no one will dare to invade this planet in the future. Let's get back to business. Lin Muyu said. I want you to help me improve these origin rifles and other weapons to deal with the Dragon Knights and the gods of the Western Divine Realm. Old Roger was stunned for a moment and couldn't help but smile. Your highness you. This lowly one has also said that an entire fleet can't do anything to two god emperors. How can these mere origin rifles deal with the experts of the Western Divine Realm? That's because you don't know about the Demon Heartstone. Demon Heartstone? Yes, the substance contained in this stone is the nemesis of god state experts. Once it enters the bloodline, it will restrict god power. This is what I want you to do. Extract the element from the Demon Heartstone and add it to your firearms. Find a way to deal with the god state experts. As she spoke, Lin Muyu spread out her hands and smiled. If you have any needs, just tell us. We will try our best to satisfy you. Old Roger frowned. This lowly one can try, but I can't guarantee success. After all, the Shattered Cauldron Realm is still a low-level developed planet. Not to mention laser weapons, it doesn't even have a steam engine. To put it bluntly, I can't even build a reactor. I can only modify and improve our current weapons. It's hard to say whether it will succeed or not. Yes, I understand. Lin Muyu nodded. Let's go. I will bring you to meet the people of the Imperial Weapons Department. We will talk after you meet them. Yes. The more than 100 people of the Weapons Department of the Eastern Capital, Winterfrost City, were completely preserved. In order to protect them, at least thousands of Imperial soldiers were sacrificed. However, Lin Muyu also knew that it was all worth it. For the safety of Qin Xiling and the others, it was worth it no matter how many people were sacrificed. Late at night, Lin Muyu introduced Old Roger to Qin Xiling. This made Qin Xiling feel as if he had obtained a treasure. In the middle of the night, he gathered all the officials of the weapons department for a meeting. Presumably, they would not be able to sleep tonight. They worked until late at night, and when they finally finished, it was almost dawn. Lin Muyu brought the two beauties back to the small courtyard to rest. As they walked slowly along the corridor, her mood was much more relaxed. She said with a smile, "The matter of the Ministry of National Defense has finally been settled. Next, it will depend on the results of the research." What is the Ministry of National Defense? I don't understand. Tang Xiaoxi pouted. You will understand in the future. Lin Muyu took a deep breath and said, Everyone rest well. Wake up at noon. There may be new military intelligence sent from afar in the afternoon. After Linghan City is taken, we will go to Linghan City to rest for 2 days. Moreover, we will begin to gather troops and prepare to rush to Tsangnan province. Yes. 2 days passed in the blink of an eye, and a letter flew to Dragon Slaying Pass. Under the siege of Sujiantao, Linghan City, the capital of Ling Sky province, had finally been reclaimed and returned to the embrace of the empire. At noon, Lin Muyu, Qin Yin, and Tang Xiaoxi brought Terralin and the others to Linghan City. Before the three entered the city, they saw the soldiers under Su Jiantao maintaining order in the city. The entire east wall of Linghan City had been severely damaged, with many places collapsing. Even the entire east wall tower had been razed to the ground. Qin Yin's eyes slightly reddened. Back then the Kamsi Marquis, Yao Yuan, died tragically in battle here. He died at the hands of Duo La. Duo La? Lin Muyu's sword-like eyebrows were tightly locked. This woman is also Luo Xian's murderer. Xiaoxi was almost injured by her hands. We must go and kill this vicious woman. Yes. Qin Yin said with concern. Your injuries have not fully healed yet. Let's talk about it after you have recovered. Duo La has two divine weapons in her hands. One is the Burgos spear, the other is the dagger of time. Both are very powerful. The Burgos spear can pierce through the god wall, and the dagger of time can control time. Before we have divine weapons of the same level, any one of us will be in danger against Duo La. Yes. Tang Xiaoxi nodded. That Duo La can not only delay the opponent's movements in a small area, but she can also speed up her own attacks, making it impossible to defend against. I have already suffered in her hands. Lin Muyu said. Fortunately, Xiaoxi is fine. This Duo La? Let's not talk about her. Let's enter the city. Yes. Su Jiantao, Wei Chou, and the others were already kneeling outside the city. When Qin Yin led Lin Muyu, Tang Xiaoxi, and the others into the city, the commoners of Linghan City also knelt together to pay their respects to the former empress. At this point in time, Qin Yin had already changed into a flowing cloud dress. Even though she wasn't wearing the empress's crown, she still gave off an unconcealable noble aura. Furthermore, Su Jiantao had already posted the announcement of the empress's arrival in the city. At this point in time, even the empire's generals who were adept at warfare were kneeling down. This was enough to show how noble this young lady's status was. Qin Yin closed her eyes and slowly walked on the main street of the city. She could faintly smell the stench of blood on the ground. The Blackstone Empire was cruel and tyrannical. She really didn't know how these commoners managed to survive under the rule of the Blackstone Empire for 2.5 months. Greetings, Your Highness. All the generals and commoners shouted in unison. Qin Yin was slightly taken aback. She infused her divine power into her heavenly voice and said, Everyone has suffered. The Qin family came late and caused everyone to suffer so much. But in the future, it will not happen again. As long as the Qin family exists, Linghan City will exist. The commoners all kowtowed. Wei Chou led the war horses in front and let Qin Yin, Lin Muyu, and the others get on. Otherwise, it would probably take 2 hours to reach the governor's residence. However, Qin Yin didn't gallop wildly on the horse. Instead, she walked slowly and spent a full hour to reach the governor's residence. She knew that she had to let the commoners of Linghan City see her, so that they would have hope again. The invaders had invaded and swallowed up half of the empire's territory. If there was no faith, no one would be able to continue working hard. Wei Chou urged his horse and followed closely beside Lin Muyu. He reported the situation of the battle. Xiang Yu's troops have already killed their way to Dongtian Prefecture, and will soon reach the east coast. The Blackstone Empire has more than 200,000 soldiers, and it is already not bad if only 50,000 are left. Their era of rule in the Linkhong province is over. Good, very good. Did you set fire to their warships so that they have nowhere to go? No, your subordinate and Duke Yu both miscalculated. We didn't think of this move. It's all right, I didn't think of it either. Lin Muyu rubbed her nose. Wei Chou grinned and didn't say anything. Chapter 9:14. In the afternoon, there was a continuous stream of news from outside the city, and the messengers were rushing around the warlord's residence. Your Highness, the warlord of Dongming County, Zhang Han, led 3,000 men to attack the defeated army of the Blackstone Empire, and beheaded more than 100 people. He is here to pay his respects to Your Highness. Your Highness, the warlord of Huiyao City, Zhuge Tian, led 2,500 men to pay his respects to Your Highness. Your Highness, the farmer of Lu County, Li Wantian, led 800 villagers to kill the enemy and beheaded more than 50 people. He is here to pay his respects to Your Highness. In just a short afternoon, after hearing that the Empress Qin Yin had appeared in Linghan City, Troops from various states and counties appeared like bamboo shoots after a spring rain. However, before the great victory at Dragon Slaying Pass, these people remained silent. What exactly is going on? In the meeting hall, Qin Yin sat on the warlord's seat and asked with her eyes closed. Lin Muyu explained. Previously, because the enemy was too strong, we issued a decree that the officials of various states and counties could recruit their own soldiers to fight against the strong enemy. These people should be similar to the feudal lords, but I didn't expect that even a farmer could gather 800 soldiers to chase after the Blackstone Empire. Xiang Yu sneered at the side. Who knows if those 50 heads were the enemy or innocent civilians? Your Highness, don't forget, after this decree was issued, many civilians became roving bandits. Lin Muyu was silent. Perhaps Xiang Yu's criticism was right. This decree had its advantages and disadvantages, just like the decree issued during the Yellow Turban Uprising at the end of the Eastern Han Dynasty. It saved the world, but it also caused it to fall apart. However, the Qin Empire was different. She still had a large number of main forces, and the monarch wasn't weak either. Wei Chou hurriedly walked in and said respectfully, Your Highness, almost all the feudal lords near Lingang province are here. There are a total of 14 routes with more than 5,000 soldiers, and at least a few hundred soldiers. Do you want to meet them? Qin Yin asked. What do you think? Let's meet them. Lin Muyu nodded and said, We are currently short of soldiers. If we can make use of these people, that would be the best. All right. Qin Yin raised her hand and said, Bring them here, Duke Wei. Yes, Your Highness. Not long after, more than a dozen feudal lords appeared outside the main door of the meeting hall. Some of them were wearing the Empire's official robes and armor. Some of them were wearing armor that was made at the last minute, and the most unbearable of them was wearing brocade. However, their faces were sunburned, and it was obvious that they were the leaders of the peasants. This group of more than a dozen people had never seen the Empress before, and they were somewhat at a loss as to what to do. Xiang Yu raised his eyebrows and asked, Can't you pay your respects to the Empress? Everyone knelt down one after another. Your subjects/commoners kowtow to Your Highness. You may rise. The corners of Qin Yin's mouth curled up, and she said with a smile, My lords, your contributions will be recorded in the book, and when we have completely recovered the Lingang province, we will naturally reward you. But now the Empire is in need of manpower, so I wonder if your troops are willing to be incorporated into the various legions? Oh, I see. Qin Yin nodded and said with a smile, Your Highness, I am the governor of Dongming Prefecture, Zhanghan. The bandits of the Blackstone Empire have plundered Dongming Prefecture like a gale sweeping away fallen leaves, and the people in the city have suffered greatly. The 3,000 soldiers that I have recruited are all new soldiers, and they are also the soldiers of Dongming Prefecture. When I was recruiting them, I promised that they would only fight to defend the city, so they are not real soldiers. If I want to recruit them, I will have to ask for their opinions. I hope that Your Highness can understand. Oh, I see. Qin Yin nodded. Lin Muyu smiled faintly and said, Zhang Han, Her Highness is the ruler of Great Qin. Does she still need to listen to his opinion on who she wants to use as soldiers? Isn't it the greatest honor for every adult man in the Empire to fight for Her Highness on the battlefield? Why don't you bring all your men into the city? I want to ask them personally if they are willing to serve Her Highness. Zhang Han was stunned. You are, Wei Chou said coldly, He is His Highness, King Qin. Zhang Han hurriedly knelt down and said, I pay my respects to His Highness, King Qin. I just feel that I should consult the soldiers for their own opinions. I have no other intentions. Please forgive me, Your Highness. Lin Muyu waved her hand and said, I know that it is not easy for you to recruit soldiers, so I will not force you. Let's do it this way. The troops of all the feudal vassals in Lingang province will be gathered together to form a garrison of Lingang province. The feudal vassals will also be promoted based on the troops that they have recruited. You will still be able to bring the troops that you have recruited and serve the Empire. What do you think? Zhang Han nodded repeatedly. I am willing to listen to Your Highness and Her Highness's arrangements. Lin Muyu swept her gaze across the rest of the feudal vassals. One after another they knelt down and said, We are willing to listen to Your Highness's arrangements. That's good. Lin Muyu looked at Wei Chou and said, "In that case, I will leave the matter of reorganizing the garrison of Lingang province to Duke Wei. Duke Wei will also serve as the temporary commander of this new army. As for the Longdan army camp, I will personally lead it." Wei Chou nodded and smiled. "Yes, Your Highness." Now that Qin Yin had returned, Lin Muyu could finally take the time to lead the troops herself. It was also very suitable to appoint Wei Chou as the commander of this new army. Wei Chou was a famous general of the empire, and had many successful battles. In terms of prestige and ability to lead troops, he was also one of the best in the empire. He was able to convince the masses, and had the ability to lead a new army. Tang Xiaoxi smiled at the side and said, "Let's wait here for a few more days. Based on the current situation, there will definitely be many feudal vassals rushing over from all over Lingang province within 3 days." "Yes." Qin Yin nodded and smiled. Su Jiantao said, "These bastards. I don't see them usually, but when it is time to ask for rewards, they all appear." Zheng Yifan laughed heartily. The prefects and city lords of the various prefectures and commanderies usually don't have much military power. This time they're taking the opportunity of the imperial edict to make more contributions and think about their future. It's actually quite normal. Su'er also nodded and said, "Yes, that's right." Lin Muyu slowly sat down and said with a cold gaze, "As long as these people don't cause trouble, then everything can be discussed. Wei Chou, you must appease the people's hearts. These feudal vassals all have different thoughts. You must intimidate them and win over the people's hearts at the same time. Right now we still have 400,000 enemies from the Tianji Empire, so we can't let anything happen at the back." "Yes, Your Highness, this subordinate understands." Wei Chou cupped his fists and smiled. "Then this subordinate will lead the guards out of the city to appease the feudal vassals, and arrange camps and provisions for them. Yes, go. Be careful." "Yes." 3 days passed by in the blink of an eye. The various feudal vassals from the Lingskai province, Lingnan province, and Mingshan province all rushed over upon hearing the news and gathered in Linghan city. Outside the city there was a majestic camp. Although most of them were new soldiers, there were at least 40 feudal vassals and several tens of thousands of soldiers. This made Wei Chou extremely happy. After a series of bloody battles, the Courage Dragon camp was only left with 13,000 soldiers. But in the blink of an eye, so many new soldiers had arrived. The opportunity to replenish the soldiers had arrived. Inside the meeting hall, everyone was drinking afternoon tea. "How many soldiers are there in total?" Lin Muyu looked at the name list and asked. Wei Chou said happily, "So far, there are more than 74,000 soldiers. I estimate that there are still tens of thousands of soldiers on the way." Xing Yifan smiled. "Congratulations, Duke Wei. The garrison army has just been established, but it already has more than 100,000 soldiers. Speaking of which, in terms of numbers, it can already be considered the #1 army of the empire." Wei Chou said helplessly, "Why must Lord Fan make fun of me? I'm afraid that the combat strength of these 100,000 soldiers cannot even compare to the 10,000 infantry and cavalry of the Longdan army camp." At this moment, a civil official walked in with a thick booklet in his hand, and he said, "The Assistant Minister of the Ministry of Revenue, Jiang Chong, greets Your Highness Yin." "Rise, speak." "Yes." Jiang Chong placed the register on the table and flipped to the first page with a trembling hand. He said, "The Ministry of Revenue has done a rough count. Last year, the Lingang province had a total of 5 million households. Assuming that each household has 8 members, the total population is 40 million. We started counting from a month ago, and the current number of households is only about 3,300,000. When the Blackstone bandits came, many of the commoners were killed, captured, or hid in the mountains and forests. Nearly half of the population was lost, and the feudal lords forcefully conscripted the commoners. Now the Lingang province can be said to be 100 things waiting to be done, and the farmland is barren. Your Highness, please rule the country with benevolence and pardon the taxes of the Lingang province for 3 years." Qin Yin was surprised, and she lightly touched Tang Xiaoxi's hand, asking for help. After all, Qin had been away from the shattered cauldron realm for too long, and there were many things that she didn't understand, so she couldn't make a rash decision. Tang Xiaoxi stood up and said, Her Highness the Empress has decreed that all the commoners in the Linkhong province will be exempted from taxes for 1 year, and the rewards for reclaiming land will be increased. For every mu of land reclaimed, the reward will be 5 silver kin coins, and the reward will be given by the local officials. The Ministry of Personnel is also ordered to investigate corruption, and anyone who embezzles or hides official funds will be beheaded if the amount exceeds 10,000 gold kin coins, exiled if the amount exceeds 2,000 gold kin coins, dismissed if the amount exceeds 500 gold kin coins, and whipped 100 times if the amount exceeds 500 gold kin coins. Ministry of Personnel, record down all my words and immediately issue the decree, and execute it immediately. Yes, Princess Shi. Tang Xiaoxi lowered her head and whispered into Qin Yin's ear. Is this appropriate? Qin Yin also nodded and smiled. That's exactly what I wanted. Another 2 days later, the last remnants of the Pale Flame Army and Sea Mountain Army also plundered the fishermen's boats and escaped to the East Sea. Whisker Port was a piece of barren land, and the Empire's navy was almost completely wiped out. They were powerless to chase after them, and could only let them escape. Within these 2 days, just as everyone expected, the garrison of the Linkhong province had already expanded to 100,000 people. However, Weiqiu was deeply worried. These 100,000 people were formed by more than 70 feudal vassals, and there were also many contradictions between the various battalions. The people from the east of the river looked down on the people from the west of the river, and the people from the north of the mountain looked down on the people from the south of the mountain. It was simply a fantasy for them to have the same combat power as the Longdan army camp. Chapter 9:15. In the Eastern Sea, water splashed violently. Although there was almost no wind, waves at least 2 meters high rose from the surface of the sea and crashed continuously against the Blackstone Empire's warships. As for the fishermen's boats, they were bobbing up and down in the water like withered leaves, ready to capsize at any moment. It was an extremely frightening scene. There were a total of 400 large warships, but they were carrying less than half of their full capacity. This also meant that the Blackstone Empire's expeditionary army had less than 60,000 soldiers. On the dragon-headed warship, a group of warriors in blood-stained armor sat dejectedly, their faces full of confusion. We have failed the Emperor's grace. At one end of the deck, a general wearing a commander's insignia was ashen. His arm was crisscrossed with sword wounds, and he suddenly drew his sword and slashed it across his neck. Don't, Lord Commander. A deputy hurriedly pressed down on his arm and said tearfully, We're soldiers. Victory and defeat are commonplace. You're the highest commander of the 3 armies. How can you commit suicide? All the generals were overwhelmed with shock and hurriedly knelt down. That's right, Commander Lu Yan. You're the highest-ranked commander of the 3 armies. You definitely can't abandon us. Lu Yan was the commander of the Seagull Legion and held the same rank as Fu Yu. It was just that the Seagull Legion's strength was inferior to the Ashen Flame armies, so it was often looked down upon. But now, the expeditionary army had failed at the last moment. Fu Yu Hanshu, and even the martial god Bailey Qin had died in battle on Great Qin's soil. Once Lu Yan returned from this trip, he would definitely be sent to the military law office and punished as a loser. Emperor Shi Yuan's temperament was violent and cruel. He probably wouldn't allow Lu Yan to continue living. After all, he wasn't the cream of the crop in terms of command and strength. On the side, the young scholar said, Commander Lu Yan, if you die, we'll be a group of dragons without a leader. Please continue to lead us for the sake of the Empire and so many soldiers. This scholar was Bailey Yan, Bailey Qin's descendant. What else could Lu Yan say if even Bailey Yan had said that? The marshal died in battle. Does Mr. Yan not blame me? Lu Yan asked with bloodshot eyes. Bailey Yan shook his head. The ancestor died in battle because the opponent was too strong. Now it has been confirmed that Xiyin is the Empress Qin who has disappeared for many years in the Qin Empire. The Western Heaven Realm made a very outrageous move, and sent the strongest enemy here. The fault lies in the Divine Realm, not us. Please don't blame yourself. What should we do now? Lu Yan asked weakly. Bailey Yan was a counselor of the three armies. But in the face of the many wonderful strategies of the famous generals of the Qin Empire, Bailey Yan's confidence had been shattered half a month ago. How could he have any ideas? Just then, the roar of a giant dragon came from the distant sky. Everyone immediately became solemn, and the fallen soldiers all raised their weapons in a defensive posture. The clouds dispersed, and a giant dragon appeared in front of them. It slowly descended. When Lu Yan saw the bear-shaped battle flag on the neck of the giant dragon, he breathed a sigh of relief and walked forward. Commander Lu Yan of the Sea and Mountain Army is here. The giant dragon landed on the deck with a loud bang. The dragon knight on the dragon's back lifted his helmet, revealing a handsome face. So it's Commander Lu Yan's ship. That's great. Ah, it's Lord Fu Yin? Lu Yan was shocked. Fu Yin smiled slightly. His Majesty just received news of the expeditionary army, so he sent me with 20 dragon knights to assist in the battle. I heard. The expeditionary army suffered a crushing defeat? Marshal Bailey Qin died in battle, and even your brother, Commander Fu Yu. I got it. Fu Yun's face was a little pale. His body swayed slightly on the dragon's back, but he immediately regained his composure. He held the dragon's sword in one hand and reached into his bosom with the other, pulling out an edict. His Majesty's edict, Commander Lu Yan, please receive the edict. Your subject accepts the edict. Immediately order Lu Yan not to return to the army. Lead the rest of the troops to the wilderness south of the Lincoln province, and continue to expand the territory for the empire. If you don't reclaim the land of Lingnan, you are not to return. Ah. Lu Yan was slightly stunned. Our army only has 50,000 to 60,000 soldiers left. How can we fight against Lin Muyu's army of more than 100,000 soldiers? His Majesty is sending us to our deaths. How can that be? Fu Yun said faintly. His Majesty has sent me to assist you. Besides, the Tianji Empire's army of 300,000 is currently attacking the steel wall at Lingbei. If nothing goes wrong, Lin Muyu and Qin Yin's army will soon leave Lingbei and head towards the steel wall to participate in the battle. When that time comes, won't it be a great opportunity for us to take back Lincoln province? But our troops are still. Please do not question His Majesty's decision. Fu Yun laughed. His Majesty has already issued a royal decree, calling for the various mercenary groups within the Empire's borders to participate in the war, entering the Sky Province to seize cities and plunder land. At this moment, there are at least 1,000 warships behind me, and none of these mercenary leaders are people to be trifled with. Commander should also know that. But if we let these mercenaries seize the city, they will definitely establish themselves as kings. It will not help us at all. Commander, you don't understand. The purpose of the mercenaries is only to deplete the strength of the Qin army. Our real goal should be more long-term, such as the Qin family's capital, Lanyan City. Lu Yan was startled and nodded slightly. I understand. Then what are you waiting for? All right. Lu Yan stood up straight and said with a loud voice. Immediately send the order. Turn the ship around and head for the coast 200 miles south of the Lincoln province to find a way out. Further south of the southern border of the Lincoln province, 100 miles of dense forest covered the area. There were tigers, pythons, poisonous insects and so on in the forest. It was difficult for ordinary people to reach. It was also because of the existence of this natural barrier that the Empire's territory did not continue to expand further south. But there were still human beings in the south, the Southern Wasteland tribe. In the eyes of the people of the Empire, the Southern Wasteland tribe was also known as the Southern Barbarians. They were a group of completely uncivilized races. They did not even know how to plant crops. They did not even know how to start a fire. They still lived a life of eating raw meat and drinking blood. But at this time in the Southern Wasteland tribe, there was smoke rising from the chimneys. Tens of miles of plains were filled with smoke. The Southern Barbarians, who were dressed in animal skins, were full of smiles. They had already tasted the wonderful taste brought by the fire. Cooked meat must be much more delicious than raw meat. Elder Lu, The clansmen surrounded the bonfire and danced an ancient totem dance. The chiefs of more than a dozen large tribes of the southern wasteland tribe gathered here. Their faces were full of joy. They shouted Elder Lu to an old man in the middle. In their language, this meant, Holy Lord. The old man was wearing a king's robe. His face was full of smiles. He stroked his beard and smiled without saying a word. He was none other than the commander-in-chief of the Iha country, Qin Yi. And at this time, Qin Yi seemed to have integrated with the life of the southern wasteland tribe. Behind Qin Yi, a group of subordinates of the Iha country were full of smiles. Only Qin Huan was muttering to himself without saying a word. He was holding a clumsily made wine cup in his hand. He looked sullen. A general walked over and said with a smile, Your Highness, everyone is celebrating this grand ceremony. Why are you sullen alone? Qin Huan sneered. He looked at a group of naked southern barbarian girls who were dancing in the distance and said, We brought fire and seeds to these barbarians. We taught them how to farm, but they still yearn for peace. They want to live here quietly. They are still unwilling to agree to send troops to help us. They are really a group of ungrateful dogs. Shoo. The general hurriedly made a shushing gesture and said, Don't let their prophet who knows the language of the Central Plains hear you. This matter needs to be discussed at length. After all, we have just arrived. Not to mention eating and living in other people's houses. Now that the commander-in-chief has just been worshipped as the Holy Lord by the southern barbarians, isn't it only a matter of time before the 18 clans send troops? Don't be fooled by their unattractive appearance. Their youths are full of vigor and strength. Once they put on their armor and pick up their weapons, with a little training, they will become invincible elite soldiers. The youths of these 18 clans add up to 2 million. What a terrifying army it is. I don't think so. None of those old things are willing to work for our Iha country. As he said this, Qin Huan suddenly changed the topic and asked, I heard, there is news from the Lingnan that Qin Yin has been resurrected, and that Ding Shi is not dead. Instead, he has pledged his loyalty to Qin Yin. Is this true? Most likely. That old dog Ding Shi is truly despicable and shameless. Our Iha country has treated him so well, but he actually faked his death and has now pledged his loyalty to Qin Yin. What a shameless bastard. To think that Imperial Father even planned to build the Lingnan Loyalty Monument and carve his name in the first place. The general was stunned and said, I think Commander Ding must have his own difficulties. Don't call him Commander Ding, he is not worthy. Yes, this subordinate knows his mistake. Just as the celebration was going on, a Warhawk scout suddenly descended from the sky in the distance. He looked like he was on the verge of collapse, and his face was full of panic. He scrambled into the crowd and said, Commander-in-Chief, something bad has happened. Commander-in-Chief, something bad has happened. What's going on? Qin Yi turned around and asked. The scout hurriedly knelt down and said, Many warships have appeared on the southern coast. They are the warships of the Blackstone Empire. There are flags of the Ashen Flame Army and the Sea Mountain Army. The total number of soldiers seems to be at least 50,000. And there is also a Dragon Knight Legion following them. They are less than 50 kilometers away from us. What, 50 kilometers? Qin Yi suddenly stood up and sneered. It seems like they are coming for us. However, a mere 50,000 soldiers want to contend against the 150,000 soldiers of our Iha nation? Who will go and fight? The generals all kept quiet out of fear, and no one said anything. Even Ding Shi and Long Qianlin had been defeated, so who would have the confidence to defeat the Blackstone Empire's army? Even if it was a ratio of 3-1, no one had the confidence to do so. Finally, Qin Huan stood up from the crowd and cupped his fists saying, Imperial Father, since no one is willing to go, this child is willing to lead the army. Qin Yi frowned and couldn't help but feel a wave of sorrow in his heart. With Ding Shi and Long Qianlin dead, the Iha nation actually didn't have any more useful generals. The few remaining generals hadn't fought in any major battles and weren't useful at all. It seemed like only this son of his had experienced a true war. But no one knew a son better than a father. Qin Yi knew that Qin Huan was proud and arrogant, but he didn't have any real ability. Forget it, I will personally lead the army. Qini lightly waved his hand and said, 3 armies, listen up. Prepare for battle. We will fight against the Blackstone Empire's army on Zilu Plains. Elder Lu. Elder Lu. Behind him, the clansmen of the Southern Desolate tribe all praised him. But Qini couldn't say anything. Chapter 916. Empire Calendar, Year 7742. On the Zilu plain of the southern barbarian land, the sound of horse hooves resounded through the 9 heavens. The overwhelming army of the Iha Empire began to meet the enemy, and the enemy was the army of the Blackstone Empire that came from the sea. Banners fluttered in the wind, and Lu Yan also began to arrange his troops. Both sides were like 2 colorful clouds that would soon collide. Roar, roar, roar. In the sky, the roars of dragons were incessant. The Blackstone Empire had dispatched 60,000 troops, of which 10,000 were beast cavalrymen, mainly tiger leopard cavalrymen. In addition, there were 20 dragon cavalrymen supporting them. Qin stood on the war chariot as he looked from afar at the appearance of the enemy army in the distance, and he couldn't help but sigh in his heart. It wasn't luck that the Darkstone Empire's army was able to defeat famous generals like Ding Shi and Long Qianlin, and they could indeed be called an elite army. However, an elite army like this with a force of 200,000 was still defeated at the hands of Lin Muyu and Qin Yin. It was extremely difficult to imagine exactly what sort of freaks these 2 foster nephews and nieces of mine were to even be able to defeat an army like this. The enemy was too strong. Qini couldn't help but waver. Was the plan of his people really worth it? So many people had died, but in the end, the gap between him and the enemy was getting wider and wider. Commander? A general holding a saber turned to look at Qin Yi, seeking his opinion. Qin Yi gently nodded and said, "Let's fight." Yes. He raised his saber high and shouted, "Let's fight." The war drums thundered, and the tens of thousands of cavalry of the Iha Empire launched an attack, charging straight at the enemy's phalanx. At the same time, the army of the Blackstone Empire also launched an attack. Countless dragon cavalrymen and tiger leopard cavalrymen roared as they charged. The ground was in chaos. Both sides stood together, and it was impossible to distinguish between them. The only thing that could be seen was the dragon cavalrymen continuously spewing flames in the air, as well as the roars of the tiger leopard cavalrymen. Tiger leopard cavalrymen were a type of predator-level existence, and warhorses were originally the prey of tigers and leopards. How could they withstand the intimidation? One by one, the Iha Empire cavalry no longer dashed forward, and in the blink of an eye, their heads were chopped off by the tiger leopard cavalrymen. Their severed necks sprayed hot blood, and one life after another disappeared in this southern wasteland. This battle continued from dawn until dusk, and in the end, both sides withdrew their troops hastily. The Darkstone Empire's army still maintained a practically perfect formation as they withdrew from the battlefield of Zilu Plains, but the front, middle, left, and right armies of the Iha Empire had suffered severe losses. The ground was covered in corpses, and most of them were the soldiers of the Iha Empire. Night fell, and dew continuously dripped from the branches. Qini looked at King Cavalryman, and he of King that the Empire, of King Qin Dynasty, plain, of realm, of a dynasty kingdom immediately, and help me back, Qini said weakly. Of 50 kilometers to the west of Zilu Plain, the Iha nation's crude tents stretched for nearly 10 kilometers, and Qin Yi's tent was in the center. Qin Yi heaved a sigh of relief after entering the tent. The oppressive feeling of death had almost suffocated him. It had been too long since he had experienced such a battle. So much so that Qin Yi felt that the scene during the day was like a nightmare. Before long, the Iha Empire returned. Of course, there were some who didn't return, but at least Qin Huan returned. Qin Yi couldn't help but heave a sigh of relief. After a long time, the tent was full of Iha Empire returned. Qin Yi sat there quietly. The meat and vegetables in the golden cauldron on the table had already cooled, but he didn't even move his chopsticks. At this moment, he didn't have any appetite. "They're all back?" Qin Yi asked. "Yes, Commander. They're all back." A general cupped his fists and said, "Except for those who couldn't." "What about the corpses? Are they done counting?" They're done. A general with a full beard said. Commander, do you want to hear it? Speak. The clerk who collected the corpses reported that our army lost more than 30,000 men, and 30,000 are missing. According to the accounts of the soldiers who left, we killed more than 20,000 enemy soldiers, and killed nearly 10 dragon riders. His voice trembled slightly. Is that so? Qini raised his head, his eyes slightly red, and said, I don't want to listen to your clichés. I want to hear the real numbers. How many corpses were there in total? Reporting to Commander, the corpse collection team reported, they received a total of 63,500 corpses from our army. What about them? The Blackstone Empire left behind 5,240 corpses. The other 10,000 corpses should have been taken away by them. Bullshit. Qini slammed the table and stood up, roaring angrily. Do you all think I'm blind? I saw it clearly. The Blackstone Empire didn't take away a single corpse. They only used 5,000 people to exchange for nearly half of our army. Nearly half. Even if you're all scarecrows, how could you let them kill so many people in a day? Soldiers are trained for 1,000 days to be used in a single day. Is this how you repay the Iha Empire? Don't you all usually claim to be veterans of hundreds of battles, possessing both courage and wisdom? What happened now? In front of the Blackstone Empire's army, you're like 3-year-old children, unable to withstand a single blow. Unable to withstand a single blow. As he spoke, Qini's body suddenly trembled, and he spat out a mouthful of blood. Commander, Imperial Father, Qin Huan, and the others hurriedly stepped forward to support Qini. He seemed to be in a state of panic. This general is incompetent. All the generals uniformly knelt on the ground, but this was how war was. In the face of such a great disparity in strength, they could only accept their fate. After a long while, Qini finally caught his breath and slowly opened his eyes. His gaze was somewhat blurry as he said, I really miss my Commander Long and Commander Ding. Why does the heavens treat me like this? Qin Huan. All the generals were speechless. True famous generals were naturally talented and unconventional. Every one of them wanted to become a famous general of their generation. But the majority of them could only become stepping stones for famous generals. The next morning, Qin slowly woke up, but he heard hurried footsteps outside the tent. That person was pacing back and forth. Who's outside? Reporting to Commander, it's General Zhao De. Let him in. Yes. Zhao De opened the tent flap and entered. His expression was somewhat ugly as he said, Commander, the Blackstone Empire has sent an envoy. He says he wants to discuss matters with you. Oh, Qini said. What kind of person did they send? A dragon rider general named Fu Yun. Why does this name sound so familiar? His elder brother is Fu Yu of the Blue Flame Army, the person who killed Commander Long. Preposterous. Commander, please calm down. Do you want to see this person or not? Bring him to the central tent. I'll be right there. Yes. In the central tent, Fu Yun had already handed his sword to a general of the nominal nation of peace, but his entire person was still dignified and imposing, standing in the center of the tent like a mountain. This kind of aura was not something an ordinary person could have. Only someone with absolute confidence and strength could exude such an aura. When Qin Huan, and the others entered the tent, Fu Yun cupped his hands and smiled. Blackstone Empire's envoy Fu Yun pays his respects to your highness, Commander. Qini slowly sat down and raised his hand. Dispense with the formalities. Come have a seat. No need. Fu Yun said. The Blackstone Empire's soldiers are used to standing. Many thanks for Commander's kind intentions. May I know why Lord Fu Yun has come this time? Qini asked. Naturally, it's for the good of both our armies. Fu Yun smiled and said, Our Blackstone Empire and Iha Nation have a common enemy, and that is Qin Yin and Lin Muyu. So why should we fight to the death here? My goal this time is to form an alliance with Iha Nation. In addition, I'll also form an alliance with the 18 tribes here. Qin Huan couldn't help but say angrily. Yesterday was a battle to the death, and today you want to form an alliance? Fu Yin, aren't you going too far? We still haven't settled the matter of you killing my Iha nation's commander Long. Fu Yan raised his brows. You must be young, Master Qin Huan. As expected, heroes come from the young. But you're not young anymore. You've suffered so many losses at the hands of famous generals like Lin Muyu and Feng Jixing, but you still haven't learned your lesson. Why haven't you learned how to speak human language? Qin Huan was furious and was about to draw his sword. Fu Yan smiled faintly. Do you want to fight? Don't think that I'm afraid of you just because I came alone. It's not that I look down on Iha Nation, but none of you can keep me here. If you don't believe me, you can try. But the result will be your destruction. In less than 2 days, my Blackstone Empire's army will bathe this place in blood. The veins on Qin Yi's forehead throbbed. Lord Fu Yan, since you're here as an envoy, there's no need to be so angry. Let's talk about the details of our cooperation. Haha, Commander is a wise man. Fu Yan said. It's very simple. We'll establish an alliance and choose a day to set out on the northern expedition. The Iha nation will attack the Bright Mountain province, while our army will attack the Lincoln province. This will catch the Qin army off guard. In addition, Commander is the landlord of this place. I want to recruit soldiers here. I'll only leave after I get at least 100,000 soldiers. As for armor and weapons, Commander will need to provide them for my new army. What did you say? General Zhao Da's face was full of anger. You want us to provide the equipment for 100,000 soldiers? You're clearly trying to rip us off. Fu Yan, what do you mean by that? Fu Yan smiled faintly. Why do your words sound so unpleasant? This is assistance between allies. It can't be considered ripping us off, right? Commander, everything depends on your discretion. Qin Yi's face paled. He knew that Fu Yan was the kind of person who would do what he said. How could he not lower his head when under low eaves? Being extorted for 100,000 sets of equipment was much better than being completely wiped out. 100,000 sets, so be it. Qin Yi muttered. I hope that Lord Fu Yan will restrain your army when you return. You must not offend my Iha nation's army. Otherwise, this alliance will cease to exist. Yes, I'll definitely do as you say. Fu Yan respectfully clasped his hands and said, I wonder when the new soldiers and equipment will be ready? I'll send someone to collect them. These need to be prepared slowly. No, it can't be slow. You must select 20,000 new soldiers and 20,000 sets of equipment every day. I'll send someone to collect them. Commander, you must do this. Fu Yan raised his eyebrows and smiled. This is the condition of our alliance. It's not negotiable. Qin Yi's eyelids twitched. I understand. Lord, please return. Thank you, Commander. When Fu Yan walked out of the tent, everyone was in an uproar. Bandits. They're practically bandits. Despicable people from the Blackstone Empire. Why don't they just die? Commander, you absolutely cannot agree to this. The dignity of the Iha nation is about to be gone. Qin Yi swayed as he walked out of the tent. Suddenly he fainted. Chapter 9:17. On the 4th of July, the north started to heat up. Muyu City was officially reclaimed and returned to the Qin version. Feng Jixing, Chen Xiaoli and the others chased them all the way and chased the remaining 50,000 Longji army into the 8 wastelands. They left 50,000 troops to defend the border, while the other 100,000 returned to Muyu City. At the same time, Feng Jixing didn't let Big Wolf Lord Mao Dun and the remaining 50,000 wolf soldiers go. In the middle of the night, the sound of cicadas swept through the camp in the wilderness. The candlelight flickered and Feng Jixing put down the book in his hand. He frowned. Who is it? Come in. It is me, Your Highness. The one who walked in was Luoyu, one of the deputy commanders of the Imperial Army, and one of Feng Jixing's most capable generals. It is so late, what is it? Feng Jixing asked. Luoyu had a nervous expression as she said, Your Highness, we've already followed your orders. All 50,000 wolf soldiers have been arranged to set up camp in a valley 3 miles away. The weather is hot and dry now, so as long as we seal off all the exits, we can burn all the wolf soldiers to ashes. But do we really want to do that? What are you hesitating for, Luoyu? Feng Jixing smiled and asked. Luo Yu stood on the spot and cupped her fists. Your Highness, there are things a man should do and not do. If we kill the 50,000 wolf soldiers now, it is not what a famous general would do. At least if your Highness Yu was here, he definitely wouldn't do that. What a famous general would do. Feng Jixing stood up and his duke's cape fluttered behind him. He smiled. Luo Yu, do you know what a famous general would do? If the 50,000 wolf soldiers return to the northern desert, Mao Dun will definitely regroup. In less than 5 years, he will be able to gather another 100,000 wolf soldiers. Every year, the wolf soldiers will go south to plunder the border cities of Cloud Province and Seven Seas Province. Every year, at least 200,000 people die under the iron hooves of the wolf soldiers. Cities are turned into ghost towns and people are plunged into misery and suffering. Compared to that, I think killing 50,000 wolf soldiers is not a big deal. But Your Highness, Luo Yu knelt down and said, did Your Highness forget about the 30,000 Imperial Army brothers that were killed in Fire Badger Valley? How similar was the situation today? Since Your Highness has promised the Big Wolf Lord to release them, you should fulfill your promise. After all, you are the king, and your words carry enormous weight. Feng Jixing's gaze turned cold, and an ice-cold divine power spread out in all directions, causing Luo Yu to feel as though she had fallen into an ice cave. Luo Yu, aren't you being too impudent? Feng Jixing coldly asked. This subordinate doesn't dare, this subordinate just... Luo Yu almost couldn't breathe, he couldn't help but kowtow. This subordinate knows his mistake. Please calm your anger, this subordinate. Enough. Feng Jixing raised his arm and said, the wolf tribe of the northern desert has always been our mortal enemy. They have invaded the south time and time again, making use of their cavalry and nomadic nature to catch us off guard. Ever since the King of Light ascended to the throne, the northern desert has killed countless soldiers and civilians of our empire. Why should we be merciful to such enemies? Killing 50,000 people can save 10 times, or even 100 times more people. As he said that, he looked at Luo Yu with a deep gaze. Do it. I, Feng Jixing, will take responsibility for this sin. What you have to do is kill none of them. I can't allow any wolf soldier to return to the northern desert. I have to uproot Mao Dun's power from the northern desert. I want the northern desert to not dare to invade the empire for 100 years. Luo Yu raised her head, only to see Feng Jixing's lonely silhouette. He needed understanding and support. Yet her right-hand man was actually singing a different tune at this moment. Your Highness, why don't you let Zhang Wei handle this? Zhang Wei, he is too impulsive. If we let him handle this, it will only make him more vicious. You are different. Feng Jixing looked deeply at Luo Yu and said, on the path of a general, your path is even further than Zhang Wei's. This is a form of training for you. Remember, as you said, there are things that a man can do and things that he can't. You and I are both generals of the army. When we sit in this position, we can no longer do as we please. There are some things that we must take responsibility for, even if it means being cursed for thousands of years. Luo Yu was taken aback. She nodded and said, don't worry, Your Highness. I will definitely handle this well. Even if it means being cursed, I will bear it with Your Highness. I'll go. Yes. That night, in a valley not far from the Imperial Army's camp, flames rose into the sky. Not only did the Imperial Army use materials to ignite the fire, they also used mid-grade heavenly tomes and magic crystal crossbows. The army surrounded the valley and set it on fire. In the blink of an eye, the Wolf Army's camp had become a living hell. The light from the flames shone on Luo Yu's handsome face. He placed his hand on the hilt of his sword and stood there like a towering mountain. He raised his arm and said, they are coming up. Release the arrows. A group of badly burned wolf soldiers struggled to climb up the hill, but in the blink of an eye, they were turned into porcupines. Pools of blood flowed in the flames, and countless wolf soldiers let out mournful howls that moved people's countenance. Amidst the crowd, a warhorse galloped recklessly. It was Big Wolf Lord Morden's warhorse. Ever since he had submitted to the wind, almost all of the wolf soldiers' warhorses had been taken away. Only the Big Wolf Lord and a few others were still able to keep their warhorses. Morden's warhorse was a desert thousandly horse. Almost all of its fur had been burned off, but it still galloped as if it was flying. It neighed loudly as it charged out of the burning camp, straight to the edge of the valley, and shouted, "Why?" Mao Dun roared, "Why? Feng Jixing, you said that you would spare our wolf tribe. Why are you doing this to us?" On the mountain ridge, Luo Yu said in a clear voice, "Great Wolf Chieftain, please forgive us. We have our reasons to kill you. Your tribe is a wolf, a tiger. We have no reason to let the tiger return to the mountain." "Luo Yu, you bastard!" Mao Dun pointed his horsewhip at Luo Yu and roared, "You and Feng Jixing are both bastards. I curse you. I, Mao Dun, curse that you will die a horrible death. You will die by my sword, you bastards." Luo Yu couldn't bear to watch. She waved her hand and said, "Kill him. Take his head and follow me to his highness." Arrows flew everywhere. In the blink of an eye, Mao Dun, the great wolf chieftain of the northern desert, became a porcupine and fell in a pool of blood. Not far away, in the forest, a man in a black robe trembled. It was Guanxing. After witnessing great wolf chieftain Mao Dun's death, he was completely stunned. "Mr. Guanxing, why are you here?" Luo Yu had already sensed Guanxing's aura. She waved her hand and two soldiers immediately invited Guanxing over. Luo Yu squinted her eyes and smiled. "If I remember correctly, tonight's operation is top secret. Even the advisor group doesn't have the right to know about it. Why are you here, Mr. Guanxing?" Guanxing's face was ashen. He said in a daze, "I knew this would happen. I knew this would happen." "Knew what?" How could a hero like His Highness Feng Jixing do something as foolish as letting a tiger back into the mountains? "I knew that he wouldn't let the wolf soldiers live. I should have known that this day would come. So that's how it is." Luo Yu smiled and got on the horse. She leaned over and looked at Guanxing's face. Suddenly, she patted his shoulder and said, "But don't worry. You're from Qin and not from the wolf tribe. As the saying goes, those who aren't from our tribe will surely have different intentions. Since His Highness Prince Xian has decided to use you, then he'll definitely use you. He won't doubt you in the slightest. Thank you. Get on the horse. Follow me to meet His Highness and hand in the order." Yes. It was already past midnight. Flames soared into the sky in the distance. The massacre had gone on for close to 4 hours. Feng Jixing raised his head and looked into the distance, not feeling sleepy at all. The sound of horse hooves grew closer. Luo Yu had returned. The guard at the side was holding a human head in his hand. It was the head of Great Wolf Chieftain Mao Dun. It had just been chopped off not long ago. "Your Highness, I've come to report back." Luo Yu got off the horse and presented Mao Dun's head to Feng Xingjian. Feng Jixing waved his hand. "There's no need to look at it. Bury Mao Dun properly. Tomorrow morning, go to the valley to bury the corpse. After all, many wolf soldiers are only sacrificing their lives for Mao Dun. We mustn't let their corpses be exposed in the wilderness." "Yes." Luo Yu nodded. The difference between Feng Jixing and LV Zhao was that although Feng Jixing would also make the same choice, he maintained the most basic respect toward his enemies. This was also why Feng Jixing was outstanding when it came to using troops. His meticulousness was admirable. "Mr. Guanxing, how are you?" Feng Jixing also noticed another person. Guanxing quickly knelt down and said, "Your Highness, I got lost when I got up at night and accidentally saw the scene of General Luo, you carrying out her official duties. So I followed her here." "Do you blame me?" Feng Jixing went straight to the point. Guanxing was stunned in an instant. Feng Jixing laughed at himself and said, "I think you definitely will. After all, you have been in the northern desert for so many years and must have some feelings with them. Now that I have killed so many northern desert wolf soldiers, maybe the thing you want to do the most is to put the dagger on your waist into my heart. But if you really think so, I will not blame you. This matter is indeed Feng Jixing did not keep my promise." Guanxing hurriedly cupped his fists and said, "This subordinate definitely did not mean that. On the contrary, I can understand why your Highness did that. There is no need to be soft-hearted when it can be done once and for all. If this subordinate was in your Highness' position, I think I would also do the same. Get up." There's no need to kneel. Feng Jixing nodded and said, clear the troops tomorrow. Leave 10,000 people to guard Muyu City and the rest of the troops will follow me to reinforced Songnan Province. His Highness Qin Yan and Lord Chu Chu must be having a hard time there. They have to face the 300,000 troops of Tianji Empire. 300,000. Just at this moment, there was a panting voice from outside. Yu Shu! Yu Shu! Your Highness! He stumbled his way into the tent. Zhang Wei frowned. How can you be so reckless? Trespassing into the big tent is a capital offense. Men, drag him out and chop him. The messenger waved the letter in his hand and said, This is Her Highness Qin Yan's Yu Shu. What? Feng Jixing broke the void and teleported 7 to 8 meters away before grabbing Yu Shu's letter with one hand. He saw a very elegant line of words on it, and it was Qin Yan's handwriting. General Feng, I have returned and am currently mobilizing troops in Lingtian Province with older brother Yu. One request for you to reinforce Songnan Province with the fastest speed, and must not let the Tianji Empire break through the city walls. Otherwise Lanyan City will fall into a desperate situation. Her Highness Qin Yin. Her Highness Qin Yin is indeed back. Feng Jixing gripped Yu Shu's letter tightly and laughed wildly towards the sky. Ha 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 ha. Great. Great. Me and you have finally waited for this day. Your Majesty King of Light, Feng Jixing have finally lived up to expectations and waited for Her Highness Yin's return. Ha 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 ha. Chapter 918. Songnan Province, West Bank of Daojiang. Flags were fluttering on the steel wall. The morning mist was quickly dispersed by the sun, turning into raindrops that splashed on this fertile land. The temperature in Songnan Province was very mild in all 4 seasons, which was suitable for growing all kinds of crops. That was why it became one of the central provinces that produced food in the whole empire. But at this moment, Songnan Province had become the battlefield of the decisive battle between the Qin Empire and the Tianji Empire. The atmosphere on the wall was tense. The shiny magic crystal cannons were pointing at the distance, ready to fire at any time. Qin Yan held his sword and walked on the wall in his military uniform. This was what he had to do every day, check the defense. Since Prince Zhong was checking in person, the soldiers naturally couldn't slack off. On the other side, flags were fluttering in the wind. At least 200,000 soldiers of the Tianji Empire were waiting. They hadn't attacked the city yet, probably because the siege equipment hadn't been completed, and there was still a wide Daojiang in the middle. If they didn't solve this problem, the Tianji Empire wouldn't be able to break through the steel wall with just the Dragon Knights. Chu Chu, is my cousin really back? Qin Yan suddenly asked. Yes. Chu Chu stroked his white beard and smiled. Her Highness Qin Yan's last reincarnation was in the Western Heaven Realm, and she accidentally became a golden-winged battle angel. That Xin is Her Highness. Things in the world are so coincidental. When you fought with Bailey Qin in front of the dragon-slaying pass, he used his bloodline to trigger the bloodline resonance of Xin, awakening the god-binding chains and memories deep inside her body. So, Empress Qin Yin really came back. That's great, that's great. Although he had heard this news for 2 days, Qin Yan was still very excited. Once my cousin comes back, the whole world will be loyal to us, and our Qin Empire will be saved. Yes, but... Chu Chu looked at the other side and said, Yen, you should look at the enemy in front of you first. Bai Minghuan will attack soon. He won't wait for you and Feng Jixing's army to attack the steel wall. Yes, I understand. Qin Yan said, as long as I guard this place for half a month or even 10 days, eldest brother and Prince Xian will definitely come to provide reinforcements. Moreover, cousin princess will come as well. Yeah. Chu Chu squinted his eyes and looked into the distance. He said, Yen, look in that direction. The Tianji Empire seems to be assembling some kind of weapon. It must be prepared for us. Oh. Qin Yan gazed into the distance, only to see a group of Tianji Empire soldiers circling around a pitch-black, big guy. Qin Yan's body immediately trembled. Magic crystal cannon? That's right. Scholarling, who was standing next to him, said with a smile, The Tianji Empire has intercepted at least 100 of our magic crystal cannons. Although most of them have been damaged, some of them should still be usable. Once they launch an attack, they must have figured out how to use them. When that time comes, I'm afraid that the steel wall will not only have to face the Dragon Knight's sword chi, but also the magic crystal cannon's bombardment. My God! Qin Yan's expression changed drastically, and he said, "We don't have the Dragon Imperial Battle Spiral to defend against the magic crystal cannons. Once they use the magic crystal cannons to bombard us, I'm afraid a huge hole will be made in one shot. The entire steel wall will simply be useless." Scholar Ling said, "I think that Lord Chu Chu definitely has a way, right?" Chu Chu muttered, "There's only one way, and that is to use the physical body to intercept the magic crystal cannons in the air. After all, they won't have too many magic crystal cannons. Furthermore, they aren't that adept in using them. The Beeman King and Ice Palm Fire Fist are gods who possess divine walls. It can't be any better for them to intercept the magic crystal cannons." Scholar Ling grinned. "Lord Chu Chu, you have a divine wall too. Why don't you go?" "I'm already old. At my age, you still want me to go block the cannon muzzle?" Chu Chu said with a smile. Scholar Ling waved his paper fan and also smiled. "All right then. Just take it as the white leaf for absolutes having a bitter life. The successors call you Grandpa, so we must also call you Grandpa. We mustn't mess up the seniority." In the distance 10 miles away, it was a lively scene outside the Tianji Empire's main tent. A large group of people surrounded a magic crystal cannon and pointed at it. They were all beaming with joy and spittle flying everywhere. "It's this big guy that killed hundreds of our warriors with one shot. Yeah, even fierce beasts like the tiger leopard cavalry would be blown into pieces by one shot. The people of the Great Qin Empire are all monsters. They can even make this kind of iron monster. So that's how it should be used. Our counselors have no clue at all. A bunch of idiots who only know how to make gold coins and play with women. When it comes to the critical moment, they can't even make a single hair." In the main tent, Bai Minghuan's face turned green. He said, "Still no clue." "Yes." Castor frowned and said, "We still can't figure out how to ignite and fire it. It's so frustrating. Our captives don't want to tell us either? So far, we haven't caught a single captive who knows how to use the magic crystal cannon." "Humph." Bai Minghuan slammed his palm on the table and said, "Southern Ridge has been turned upside down. I heard that Xiyin has awakened her memory. She is the Empress of the Qin Empire, Qin. Now Lin Muyu, Su Jiantao, and Xiyin have already defeated the trash of the Blackstone Empire in Southern Ridge. Even the Saint Martial god Bailey Qin was killed. If we still can't sweep through the Iron Wall and go straight to Lanyan City to take over the capital, I'm afraid there will be a lot of changes if we stay here for too long." "Yes, General," Castor said. "How about we find a chance to send someone to sneak into the Iron Wall and catch someone who knows how to use the magic crystal cannon?" Bai Minghuan sneered, "Why bother? If it's something that can be done with gold coins, then there's no need to take the risk. Since there's no result, I'll go see someone tonight, and we'll have a conclusion tomorrow morning." Yes. Late at night, a quiet city in the Tsangnan province had fallen into a deep sleep. Yutian County was a land of fish and rice. It was surrounded by water on 3 sides, and the fishing industry was very developed. With enough water irrigation, this place produced a lot of rice every year. It was a very rich city. In the county capital, an old man was sitting leisurely in the yard, enjoying the wine and beauties. Late at night, there were still 2 enchanting dancers kneeling by his legs, pouring wine for him. The old man seemed to be enjoying it very much. His hands wandered over the dancer's shoulders and back, feeling the softness and smoothness of his palm. This Tsangnan province was a good place, and the beauties here were also the best in the world. Marquis Yuzhong, a vassal of the Qin family. He was already 62 years old, and could be counted as a 3-generation vassal. He had 2,000 guards in his hand, and the Yutian County was only 30 miles away from the Iron Wall. While the war was going on, he was living a very luxurious life. Swoosh! A figure suddenly appeared in the air. It was a middle-aged man in a golden robe. He smiled and said, "Marquis, you are in a good mood." You still haven't gone to bed in the middle of the night? Yang Zhong hurriedly looked up, and a trace of surprise flashed across his face. He hurriedly signaled the two dancers to leave, and then knelt on the ground saying, Yang Zhong, kneel to greet General Baiming. Baiming Huan slowly landed, picked up the wine pot on the table, and took a big gulp. He said, the wine of the Shattered Cauldron realm is so much better than the ones in the Celestial Pole continent. I wonder what General is here for today. I have a favor to ask of you. Oh, Yang Zhong was a bit surprised and said, what is it? Baiming Huan smiled, sat down and said, in the Battle of Lingdong, we got quite a lot of magic crystal cannons, and we were planning to follow up our victory and sweep the western region with our magic crystal cannons. But we ran into a problem. We only have magic crystal cannons and shells, but we don't know how to fire them or how to calibrate them. Yang Zhong immediately understood why Baiming Huan was here. He cupped his fists and said, but General Baiming, I am only a civil official. Things like magic crystal cannons are all supervised by the weapon department, and I can't help you. Can't help you? Baiming Huan took out a stack of gold notes and said, 100,000 Jinin coins, 30 in total. Is this enough to buy the method of using magic crystal cannons? This. Yang Zhong's face turned green. Baiming Huan sneered. What? Do you still think you are a loyal official of the Qin family? Don't forget, you sold the defense map of the Dongshuang city to us for 200,000 Jinin coins. Do you want to back out now? I still have your letter. If I give it to Lin Muyu, what do you think will happen to you? Ha ha ha, General, you must be joking. Yang Zhong said. We are all businessmen. Why should we hurt each other? The usage and calibration of the magic crystal cannons are not impossible. I can bribe one of the generals on the steel wall and have him join your army. Naturally, it won't be difficult to obtain the usage of the magic crystal cannons. Baiming Huan laughed. Good. It is so good to have a friend like you in the Tianji Empire. But when will that guard friend of yours come? 3 days later, at the same place. No, 2 days. I will decide the place. Yes, General. Yang Zhong's face was covered in sweat. Baiming Huan was indeed a cunning old fox. The light flashed, and Baiming Huan had already left, as if he had never been here. But the stack of gold notes on the stone table was real, and they were all from Lanyan City. The Tianji Empire must have taken a lot of these notes along the way. Right now, Baiming Huan was not short of money. He just needed help. On the 5th day of the 7th month, when the sky was just beginning to brighten, a large army marched out of Linghan City in the dark of the night. The vanguard of the army headed straight for the northwest direction, which was the direction of Tsangnan province. Finally, the troops under Lin Muyu, Qin Yin, and Tang Xiaoxi's command set out. A majestic army of 60,000 elites, carrying a large number of magic crystal cannons, and other supplies, galloped along the main road. Chapter 919. 3 days later, the army left Tiger Subdu Pass in the north and officially passed through the Qinling Mountains. In another 3 days, they would almost reach the area protected by the steel walls. The heavens were not in their favor. At this moment, it started to drizzle. Lin Muyu quickly opened 2 umbrellas and handed one to Qin Yin and one to Tang Xiaoxi. Then she took the 3rd umbrella from Wei Chou. The march could not be delayed, but the army had prepared very little rain gear. There were only a handful of people qualified to hold umbrellas. Qin Yin seemed to remember something. She picked up the long sword hanging on the horse's back and said, "Hear this, it's time to return it to its owner." Stellar sword. Lin Muyu finally realized that this was her sword. She could not help but ask in surprise. "I remember that brat Xiao Pingua took the stellar sword with him. Why is it with Xiao Yin?" Qin Yin smiled faintly. "Xiao Pingua gave it to me. I didn't know at the time, but now I understand. He took something from you and gave it to me. Big brother you, did Xiao Pingua give you anything strange?" Well, Lin Muyu searched her Qiankuan pouch and took out a sharp sword. There are words carved on it. The hilt is in the shape of a cross. It should be a crusader broadsword. You know it. I've seen a similar sword in the banished lands. Xiao Pingwa must have taken it from someone when he was playing in the Banished Lands. It's strange. Why is Xiao Pingwa in the Banished Lands? I've always kept it in a different space, but I've never been to that space. Maybe it's the Banished Lands. As she spoke, Lin Muyu took out a pile of cloth from her Qianquan pouch. This was also given to me by Xiao Pingwa from the Banished Lands. It looks like a coarse dress. It's so short. Qin Yin's face instantly turned red. That's me. Lin Muyu was shocked. You didn't really wear it, did you? Her voice was as soft as a mosquito's, and her face was blushing. Lin Muyu snorted. Come to think of it, this holy dragon has never done anything like a holy dragon. What is this? He gave me Xiao Yin's dress, and it's the original one. Qin Yin's face turned even redder. Brother Yu, what are you talking about? Tang Xiaoxi raised her umbrella and said with a smile. That's right, that's right. It was clearly Little Apple who brought you and Xiao Yin together, but you didn't know how to appreciate his kindness. Oh no, you didn't know how to appreciate the dragon's heart. In the different space, a Catasaurus let out a joyful cry. Then, a spatial rift was torn open, and it had already climbed out. Clouds floated around it as it slowly twisted its body and flew next to Lin Muyu, looking like it was waiting for a reward. Lin Muyu patted Xiao Pingwa's head and said, All right, you did a great job. Although I didn't recognize this dress, and Xiaoyin also lost her memory at the time and couldn't remember the stellar sword in me, you still have some conscience and did a good deed. As she spoke, Lin Muyu folded the dress again and put it back into her Qianquan pouch. Do you still want to keep it? Qinin asked. And it's worth commemorating. After all, Xiaoyin wore it in the Banished Lands. This proves that the conditions in the Banished Lands must be very difficult. Otherwise, you wouldn't have to wear such a coarse dress. Qinin nodded. The Banished Lands is a place without laws. There is only slaughter and plunder. I unified the entire plain during my days in the Banished Lands, but after I leave, the place will definitely fall into chaos again. The Banished Lands is a huge plain dump. People who have been exiled from various major plains will enter the Banished Lands. There is endless strife there, and there will never be peace. It's a good place to train. Lin Muyu rubbed her nose. Tang Xiaoxi glanced at her and said, Mu, you're already a god king. Coupled with that abnormal formless elephant spell, you'll only be bullying people if you go to the Banished Lands. Bullying people is also a kind of training. After all, the premise of upholding justice is that the power of justice is stronger than evil. This is only natural. After we've pacified this plain, we can consider traveling to the Banished Lands. What do you think? Are you going? The two great beauties immediately nodded in unison. Yes, of course we're going. Wei Chou asked carefully, Your Highness, can I go? What are you going to do? Lin Muyu asked. I'll serve you tea and water. No need. Lin Muyu looked back at Wei Chou and said, Wei Chou, you're not young anymore. Isn't it time for you to get married and have children? You're Duke Wei after all. How can you always be alone? Wei Chou took a deep breath. The country is still in danger. How can I be in the mood to get married? Let's think about how to win the Battle of Tsangnan Province. What do you think? The Tianji Empire has deployed 300,000 soldiers to attack the Steel Wall this time. Marshal Bai Minghuan's strength can't be underestimated. He also has the help of the Tianji Empire's main force, the Dragon Knights. It's said that Lin Tonghai, Dora, and other God-State warriors have also come from the 8 wastelands to help. Moreover, their chief strategist is that Gong Shangming. This is even more difficult to deal with. Whether it's by force or wits, we don't have an absolute chance of winning. Gong Shangming again. Lin Muyu frowned. It's not easy to deal with. But Qinin asked, Dora is here too. Yes, our Warhawk scouts saw Dora, Luo Fei, and Dali from afar. Lin Tonghai is also here. It should be true. The Tianji Empire has gathered the superior forces of the Northern and Southern Legions, and is planning to break through the steel protective wall of Tsangnan Province. As long as the steel protective wall is broken, they will be able to march straight in and attack the heart of the empire, Lanyan City. Don't worry, they won't have this chance. Lin Muyu said with a cold face. Send out all our scouts and have them explore and pave the way forward 24 hours a day. Don't be careless. Bring the army and try to reach the battlefield in 2 days. Yes. Tianshu province was closer to Tsangnan province, so Feng Jixing's speed was faster. The day before Lin Muyu's troops arrived at the steel wall, Feng Jixing had already led 100,000 soldiers to the steel wall. The army was stationed in the unicorn forest behind the steel wall, while Feng Jixing led the Imperial Guard cavalry directly into the steel wall. Qin Yan and Chu Chu welcomed them in person. Feng Jixing's 100,000 soldiers were like a dose of calming medicine, putting Qin Yan and Chu Chu at ease. General Feng, you're here. Chu Chu greeted him with a smile. Greetings, Chu. Feng Jixing cupped his hands and said with a smile, let's go, we'll go to the top of the wall to take a look. You guys also tell me in detail about the battle situation these 2 days. Yes. Climbing up the high wall, everyone looked into the distance. On the other side of the Daojiang River, there were already densely packed battle flags of the Tianji Empire. Furthermore, the riverside was filled with bamboo rafts and wooden boats. The army of the Tianji Empire had practically cleared out the forest on the east bank and built countless wooden rafts that could be used to cross the river. This scene looked exactly the same as when the demon race attacked, except that the Tianji Empire did not build high walls and used projectile tactics to shoot armored demons over. Looking at the land in the east, Feng Jixing could not help but suck in a breath of cold air, saying, what a majestic and mighty army. No wonder they were able to defeat Yu's Longdan army camp in Lingdong province. Qin Yan said, they did not defeat them, but Big Brother chose to take the initiative to retreat and deal with them. He did not confront them head-on. That's right. Yu is very wise. The total strength of the Flowing Wind Army and the Divine Cloak Army is more than 10 times that of the Longdan army camp. Adding the Dragon Knights and the practitioners of the Divine Cloak Army, the chances of the Longdan army camp winning is probably less than 10%. Avoiding the battle is the wisest choice. Feng Jixing turned around and flew to the sky outside the city. Looking at the uneven grooves on the steel wall, he said, they already attacked yesterday. Yes, they attacked for 2 days. Qin Yan said, but they were all small attacks. They only used a small portion of the Divine Cloak Army's front line. They tried to use the profound energy of the practitioners to break through the wall, but they failed. Our magic crystal crossbows are able to completely restrain the practitioners of the Divine Cloak Army. Is that so? How many magic crystal crossbows are left? Around 30,000. We used 20,000 yesterday. Ayen. Feng Jixing helplessly patted Qin Yan's shoulder and said, you are too honest. If you have the time, you should learn from your big brother Yu. The Divine Cloak Army's actions are obviously to exhaust our magic crystal crossbows. Now that you have used up all of your resources, I want to see how you are going to defend against their next round of attacks. Qin Yan's face was overwhelmed with shock. This? I have never thought of it. Forget it. Feng Jixing looked into the distance and pointed at a certain place on the city wall. Head south from here. Withdraw all the troops and replace them with my men. They are more experienced in fighting the Tianji army. Yes. Is there any news from Yu's side? When will he arrive? Yesterday's letter said that he will arrive in 2 days. Calculating it, at this time tomorrow, Big Brother and His Majesty cousin sister should be here with 60,000 troops. That's great. Feng Jixing grinned and rubbed his palms together. In that case, as long as I can hold on for 1 day, when Yu arrives, I'll be able to quit and let him take charge of the situation. Ouyang Yan smiled faintly at the side. Prince Xian Feng Jixing. As expected, he is a hands-off shopkeeper. The real hands-off shopkeeper is Her Highness, who is together with you. Feng Jixing touched his nose and smiled bitterly. How am I considered a hands-off shopkeeper? I have the body of a shop assistant and the life of a shopkeeper. I haven't received a single cent of military pay, and I've wasted 6 years of my youth. Chu Chu, Scholarling, and the others did not wish to speak anymore. Zhang Wei, Luoyu, and the others could not help but laugh out loud. Ouyang Yan said, your youth isn't worth much anyway. Why are you feeling sorry for yourself here? When Her Highness Qinin arrives, You can ask for military pay. Qinyan was surprised. Your Highness Prince Xian, it can't be that you haven't received any military pay for the past 6 years, right? What do you think? Feng Jixing glanced at him. Qinyan revealed a look of respect. Then how did you endure for so many years? At the side Luo Yu said, Your Highness Prince Zhong, when Zhang Wei confiscated the assets of a corrupt official in Tianshu province 2 years ago, he kept half of the Jining coins as the military pay for the imperial guards. As the commander, there are naturally many benefits as well. Don't think that he doesn't have any military pay. He is eating and drinking well every day. Don't mention it. Luo Yu. Feng Jixing continued to look toward the east and said, If Bai Minghuan attacks today, you will be the first to fight. Yes, Commander. Luo Yu cupped her fists, looking confident. Chapter 920. In the immortal world, beams of light exploded in the midst of the Spirit Mountains. This was already the 27th day since the war between the Eastern and Western immortal world. Both sides had gathered tens of thousands of Spirit Mountains to boost their godly energy, and gathered over 30,000 godly realm experts to fight against each other. This war had destroyed countless Spirit Mountains, and destroyed countless planes. It was already impossible to calculate how many Spirit Mountains had been destroyed in this war. A war between the gods was destined to be a calamity for mortals. This was inevitable. Boom! The flaming battle axe slashed across the sky, as if it was tearing the heavens apart. The flaming axe light tore through the air, and directly turned 2 four-winged angels into ashes. The 7 luminaries Demon Emperor was at the forefront of the battle formation. Facing the human wall formed by the entire angel army in front of him, he showed no fear. After striking with the Pengu axe in his left hand, he quickly raised the Xianyuan sword in his right hand and laughed loudly. Come on, come on. The more people there are, the easier it is for me to kill. Let me see how capable you long-haired birdmen are. In the center of the human wall, Ruler Claude's entire body was covered in lightning. Rays of light shot out from his body, almost raising the power of the law of light to the extreme. He shouted in a low voice, Xian Eva, attack with me. A ball of light enshrouded Eva's palm. She nodded and said, Ruler, you must be careful. This attack from the 7 luminaries Demon Emperor is not simple. Xian frowned slightly. The sharp sword in her hand emitted a light that soared into the sky. She shouted in a low voice, 7th slash, God slaying. Behind the 7 luminaries Demon Emperor, Xiao Fairy looked into the distance. She could not help but tremble. Demon Emperor, be careful. Claude's attack is very strong. Xian's slash behind him is also very sharp. You must not underestimate her. I will strengthen your shield and life force. You must use your strongest attack to deal with it. With that, Xiao shouted softly. The divine power in her body whistled out. It was the power of the law of life. Green divine power turned into a boundless domain that spread around the 7 luminaries Demon Emperor. The 7 luminaries Demon Emperor felt as if he was bathing in a spring breeze. The divine power that he had lost was also recovering rapidly. It was as if he had been resurrected. Come on. The 7 luminaries Demon Emperor's fighting spirit rose. He laughed and shouted at the Western Divine Realm's Angel Legion. You useless trash. All of you are weak chickens. If you have the guts, come and fight me. Dai Stupid idiot, Ming throwing Lu Mao. Claude's face turned ashen when he uttered that line of Cantonese. Fight. With a roar, Claude raised his palm. Light shot out. Beams of light gathered in the space. In the blink of an eye, they shot through several spiritual mountains in East Heaven. Even a few God King powerhouses were turned into blood mist. They were evaporated by the power of light. As the ruler of the Western Divine Realm, Claude naturally had his strengths. Xian brandished her sword. The sword light descended from the sky. The scorching power could be felt from afar. This attack was indeed worthy of its name, God-slaying. Ordinary gods, even god emperors, might not be able to withstand the fatal attack of this 7th slash. Come at me. The 7 luminaries Demon Emperor suddenly turned around. With a light flip of his wrist, power whistled out from the Xianyuan sword. He shouted, "Come have a taste of my 7 glorious stars transformation." Boom, boom, boom. Behind the Devil Emperor, there seemed to be a canopy of stars that led straight to another world. At this moment, the power of countless resplendent stars in that canopy of sky was bombarding the human wall of the Western God realm with a destructive force. Cries of agony and wails filled the air. Countless feathers were scattered in the air. Countless 2-winged and 4-winged angels had died to the power of the stars. The 7 glorious stars transformation was already terrifying enough to begin with, let alone when it was strengthened by the Xianyuan sword. The 7 Brilliance Demon Emperor's attack had killed at least 100 divine kings, and over 1,000 ultimate gods. Block it! Claude held the wall of light in his hand, and continuously resisted the impact of the 7 glorious stars transformation. Finally, with a poochie sound, he spat out a large mouthful of blood. Even the law spirit beads that flew out of his body shattered. He was already seriously injured. Protect the ruler. Shi Yan waved her longsword and slashed dozens of times in a row. Light surged and forcefully shattered the power of dozens of stars. She was not in a good state either. Her face was pale and she had used too much power. However, she still looked behind her and shouted, "Eva, what are you waiting for? Take the ruler and leave through the wormhole." Yes. Eva suddenly hugged Claude's injured body. With a wave of her palm, a huge black hole appeared behind her. A light flashed, and her and Claude's bodies disappeared into the darkness. No one knew where they went. Puffed! Shi Yan suddenly spat out a mouthful of blood. At that moment, she completely gave up resisting. Her beautiful eyes were filled with despair. She gently opened her arms and watched the 7 luminaries Demon Emperor fly toward her. Buzz, buzz, the Xianyuan sword emitted faint holy power, and directly pressed against Shi Yan's neck. The blade was very sharp and could pierce through her skin at any time. The 7 luminaries Demon Emperor looked at her indifferently and sneered. Is this the strongest seraph Shi Yan in the Western Divine Realm? You do have some tricks up your sleeve, but compared to the strongest power of my East Heaven, you are still far from it. Do you see? Your master has already abandoned you and ran away. Do you still want to continue working for him? Shi Yan closed her eyes. Kill. Why do you have to do this? The 7 luminaries Demon Emperor actually had a heart of love. He said, if you are willing to pledge allegiance to my East Heaven, I will give Sun Feng's position to you. In the distance, Sun Feng was stunned. He didn't say anything, but he cursed in his heart. Mother **Ker Demon Emperor, you are tricking me. Shi Yan smiled faintly. No need. Kill. Why? Xiao flew up and asked. Shi Yan, why do you have to work for a despicable person like Claude? I owe the ruler a debt of gratitude for recognizing and saving my life. Shi Yan said softly. He saved me from the ruins and gave me the identity of a seraph. I will not betray him. So, you are determined? The 7 luminaries Demon Emperor's eyes were cold. Kill. Shi Yan closed her eyes again, but the chill on her neck suddenly disappeared. The 7 luminaries Demon Emperor sheathed his sword and said, forget it, I won't kill you. Otherwise, someone will blame me. You. Shi Yan looked at him in shock. Why? The 7 luminaries Demon Emperor laughed. Because you are Xi's sister. When she was in the Western Divine Realm, you took care of her a lot. Xin is Qinin. She is Lin Muyu's girlfriend, and Lin Muyu is my sworn brother. In other words, you are Lin Muyu's sister-in-law. If I kill my brother's sister-in-law, do you think he will cut me with a knife? Shi Yan. As a seraph, Shi Yan's entire life was burdened with killing and domination. She was a serious person, but now she met the 7 luminaries Demon Emperor, the king of gods who was not serious at all. For a moment, she didn't know what to say. She only felt mixed feelings, and her heart was in a mess. The 7 luminaries Demon Emperor continued. You and Qin will ascend to heaven sooner or later, and they will definitely side with me. If you continue to be stubborn, Shi Yan, I'm afraid we will have to fight sooner or later. Today you saved Claude's life, so you have repaid the favor you owe him. Next you will owe me and you a favor. As for how you will repay it, it's up to you. Go, my celestial army is about to crush them. This time, I want the rights to rule thousands of planes in the eastern territory of the Western Divine Realm. Go back and tell Claude to wash his neck and wait for me in the temple. I will come sooner or later. Shi Yin frowned. Demon Emperor, must you kill? Why not? The 7 luminaries' Demon Emperor's face turned sinister. For the sake of a sovereign lattice, Claude sent so many gods to the Shattered Cauldron realm to kill my brother. Does he think I will let him off? Go back and tell Claude that I can forgive the tens of thousands of gods in the Western Divine Realm, but not him. I want him to know the consequences of offending my brother, the 7 luminaries' Demon Emperor. He will be reduced to ashes. Shi Yin felt a slight chill in her heart. She raised her sword and turned to leave. There were still so many angels in the sky who hadn't retreated. Their faces were filled with confusion. Kill. Sun Feng raised his long sword and streaks of light flew out from the eastern heaven realm. In the blink of an eye, the sky was once again filled with killing. This time, there was no need for the 7 luminaries' Demon Emperor to personally take action. The outcome of this battle had already been decided. The Western Divine Realm was doomed. They had lost at least half of their god emperors and god kings. They had no way of contending against the eastern heaven. Looking at the Xianyuan sword in his hand, the 7 luminaries' Demon Emperor said indifferently, "All right, your mission in the Divine Realm has been completed. Go to the human realm and continue to complete your emperor hegemony." Xiao smiled. "Are you really planning to give the Xianyuan sword to you? This is your precious baby." The 7 luminaries' Demon Emperor smiled. "No, it is not my precious baby. My precious baby is something else." "Oh, then what is it?" I don't know either." The 7 luminaries' Demon Emperor murmured and smiled. Suddenly, he activated his divine power and locked his gaze on the Shattered Cauldron realm in the distance. After sensing Lin Muyu's aura, he suddenly threw the Xianyuan sword out. Immediately, the long sword was wrapped in thick flames. It directly penetrated the wall of the plane and turned into a stream of light, flying towards the human realm. At night, in the jungle of Tsangnan province, the army temporarily rested. After a day of rapid marching, many people were already exhausted. It was a summer night and there were many mosquitoes in the jungle. However, fireflies rose and fell in the grass, adding a sense of tranquility to the murderous atmosphere. Lin Muyu leaned against a towering tree and sat on the roots. She opened her right hand and hugged Qin Yin in her arms, while her left hand held Tang Xiaoxi's small hand and held her in her arms. The stars were dim. The 3 of them looked at each other and smiled. They had a tacit understanding. No one said anything and quietly enjoyed this rare peace. If only they could be together like this forever. Buzz. A ball of flames descended from the sky and landed on a rock less than 5 meters away with a bang. The rock was directly smashed into pieces, and the flames rose into the sky. F***CK, what was that? Lin Muyu was shocked. The 2 beauties in her arms also turned pale. Chapter 921. The center of the giant rock was almost completely melted. About 10 meters deep into the ground, a ball of fire wrapped around a bright and dazzling longsword stabbed into the ground. One could feel a strong sense of righteousness from it. This righteousness was not something that any divine weapon in the human world could compare to. At least, Lin Muyu had never seen it before. "It's a magic weapon," he said with certainty. "It's the weapon that Brother Demon Emperor delivered to me." Qin Yin smiled faintly and pushed his arm. "Then why aren't you going to get it? Don't let others snatch it away." "Okay." Lin Muyu leaped into the deep pit and circled around the Xianyuan sword. Then, she reached out and gently grasped the hilt of the sword. Suddenly, her entire body trembled. She felt a strange sense of familiarity. It was as if the power of the Xianyuan sword and the supreme divine power in her body had some kind of subtle resonance. On the delicate and majestic hilt, 2 words Xianyuan were engraved, which made Lin Muyu's heart beat faster. Could this be the legendary ancient magic weapon, the Xianyuan sword? This sword had been away from the human world for too long, and the 7 luminaries' Demon Emperor ruled the East Heaven. If they wanted to find the Xianyuan sword, It should be the 7 luminaries demon emperor, who found it first. And the reason why there was this resonance was because Lin Muyu's supreme divine power came from Fuxi, and the Xianyuan sword came from Xianyuan Xiaoyu. They were originally of the same origin. With a little force, she pulled the sword out of the scabbard. Suddenly, a clear ding sound of the sword echoed. The sword was bright and translucent, showing the shape of all things in the world. It was very majestic. It really lived up to the name of the Xianyuan sword. Lin Muyu's heart beat faster. The Xianyuan sword seemed to be innately compatible with her power. If she wielded the Xianyuan sword to attack, her power would probably increase by at least 50%. Looking at the sky, he smiled and said, "Thank you, big brother. Wait for me in the heaven realm. I will come to find you as soon as I complete my mission in the mortal realm." She grabbed the scabbard and leaped onto the surface. At this moment, Wei Chou, Zhen Yifan, Suyu, Su Jiantao, Terralin and the others had all heard the commotion, and were stunned when they saw Lin Muyu flying out with an unparalleled divine sword. "Your Highness, you, that is?" Zheng Yifan asked. "Xianyuan Xiaoyu sword." Lin Muyu answered briefly, "The sword of the Yellow Emperor." However, the Shattered Cauldron realm might not have any legends about the Xianyuan sword. Zheng Yifan nodded. "Yes, indeed I don't. However, there is a legend in the Heaven realm regarding one of the 10 great divine weapons. I didn't expect that your Highness would really obtain a divine weapon. Congratulations. Thank you, Master Fan." Lin Muyu smiled and said to Qinin, "Xiaoyin, looks like I can give you the Star Sword. It will be your sword from now on. The heaven-suppressing sword has also been lost." "All right, thank you, Your Highness Emperor Qin." Qinin nodded happily. She had experienced a lot, and seemed to have matured a lot. She no longer called Lin Muyu Big Brother Yu in public, but called him by his title. This seemed more dignified, but it didn't affect the intimacy between the two at all. After all, everyone could see that Qin and Lin Muyu were in love with each other. This was a well-known fact. Su'er said, "With the Xianyuan Xiaoyu sword, we should have a higher chance of winning against the Tianji Empire. Even if we encounter experts like Bai Minghuan and Dora, we should not be at a disadvantage." "Yes." Tang Xiaoxi nodded. "But that Dora also has a divine weapon, and is very powerful. If we encounter her, we still have to be careful. That woman is very vicious." Lin Muyu gripped the Xianyuan sword tightly and said, "If we really encounter Dora, let me take care of her." "No." Qinin pulled Lin Muyu's wrist and said, "Leave Dora to me. Since I came down from the Western Divine Realm with her, I can't ignore the mistakes I made unintentionally. Dora killed Marquis Yao Yuan of the Tranquil Sea and Duke Luo Xian of the North. She has a blood feud with me, and I have to take care of her. Otherwise, I won't be able to face the spirits of Lord Yao Yuan and Duke Luo Xian in heaven." "Yes, that's good. Leave Bai Minghuan to me." "Yes." Lin Muyu looked around and said, "Everyone rest early. We will break camp in 4 hours and try to reach the Unicorn Forest by noon to meet up with Big Brother Feng and Ayen." "Yes, Your Highness." Everyone left one by one. The march was very simple, and they didn't even bring tents. So Lin Muyu still chose to rest under a tree where there were not many people. Tang Xiaoxi and Qinin snuggled in each other's arms and soon fell asleep, breathing evenly. Lin Muyu looked at their sleeping posture, and couldn't help but smile. Then she closed her eyes and fell asleep as well. After a long time, when the sky was still dark, Lin Muyu suddenly woke up. In the Spirit Pulse art, a powerful force was approaching quickly. At the same time, Qin and Tang Xiaoxi woke up as well. Qin frowned slightly and said, "Someone is coming. And very strong." Tang Xiaoxi added, "No, he's injured." Lin Muyu smiled faintly and said, "His aura is sometimes strong and sometimes weak. Let's go and meet this person before the army moves." "Yes." The 3 figures flashed and disappeared into the distance. In the dense forest 5 miles away, a warhorse was hurriedly galloping through the forest. However, the rider suddenly pulled on the reins. The warhorse neighed and slid a few meters on the grass. He slowly lifted his cloak, revealing the face of a middle-aged man. He sneered and said, "Come out, you guys." On the branch, 3 people floated down. It was Lin Muyu and the other 2. The middle-aged man could sense the existence of Lin Muyu and the others at such a close distance. This meant that his strength was not weak. He raised his eyebrows and stared at Qin Yin's face. He said, I know you. You are Xiyin, the first place of the gods' chosen trial, and a level 7 battle angel. You. Why are you with 2 people from the Qin Empire? Qin Yin closed her eyes, but she could almost see the person's silhouette with her spiritual sense. She said, I am not only Xiyin, I am also Qin Yin, Qin Jin's daughter. Who are you? Me? The middle-aged man laughed coldly and said, My name is Mo Luo. I am the dispatcher of the southern tribes of the Western Heaven Realm. I came from the banished land. However, the army was tricked by the despicable 7 luminaries Demon Emperor. Most of them have fallen, and I am one of the survivors. Xiyin, listen to my advice. Immediately follow me to the Tianji Empire's camp and apologize to Marshal Baiming Huan. Maybe if I speak up for you, he will forgive you and spare your life. A beautiful smile appeared on Qin Yin's face. Are you asking me to submit to the Western Heaven Realm again? You are someone who has experienced the Battle Angel's inheritance. Your bloodline has already been integrated with the power of the Western Divine Realm. What? Are you still thinking about the ties of mortals? Qin Yin smiled faintly. I am Qin Yin. I am Qin Jin's daughter. I was once the ruler of this land. That is all. The Western Heaven Realm's gift to me is a kind of plunder. I remember the pain of losing my paradise. I remember Claude's greed and cruelty. Mo Luo, I will give you a chance. Immediately surrender to the Qin Empire. Otherwise, you will not be able to leave this place today. What do you mean? Mo Luo became alert. Only now did he realize that Lin Muyu and Tang Xiaoxi were slowly increasing their divine power. He had completely underestimated the 2 of them. In fact, their strength was not inferior to his at all. Mo Luo could not help but roar in anger. The war horse under him could not withstand the divine power, and turned into a pile of blood mist. Mo Luo was in the air. His black robe suddenly shattered and 4 dazzling white wings appeared on his back. It was a 4-winged angel. A 4-winged angel with the cultivation of a god emperor. No wonder he could penetrate the flame knot of the 7 luminaries Demon Emperor, and not die. Be careful. Tang Xiaoxi's face tensed up. A god emperor of the 71 heavenly grottos. So powerful. Mo Luo laughed aloud and slowly drew a sword of light. He looked down at the 3 of them and said, The 3 of you are only god kings. None of you have become a god emperor, so you don't know the difference between god emperors and god kings. Today, I'll be merciful and let you understand this difference. Come, which one of you wants to die first? Qin Yin said faintly, So you are saying that you are not willing to surrender and want to go to Baiming Huan to listen to his orders? I am a 4-winged angel of the Western Heaven Realm. Naturally, I will not be controlled by the people of the Broken Cauldron Realm. Give up, Xiyin. Since I cannot change your mind, I will bring your head back to the Western Divine Realm to apologize to the Lord Ruler. You. Qin Yin gritted her teeth. Her long eyelashes trembled slightly, and tiny golden red flames lingered on each of her eyelashes. The surroundings suddenly became scorching hot, and the flaming eyes were about to come out. Wait. Lin Muyu suddenly raised her arm and blocked the flaming eyes with a strong palm. She smiled. Xiaoyin, you don't have to do anything. I can take care of this Mo Luo by myself. Can you? Qin Yin asked. Don't worry. If I don't have this ability, how can I protect you and Xiaoxi in the future? Lin Muyu smiled confidently. She slowly pulled out her sword. Instantly, the light of the Xianyuan sword shot up into the sky. The surroundings immediately emitted a strong righteous aura. Mo Luo was slightly startled. He never thought that there would be such a strong person in the Broken Cauldron Realm. Moreover, this person was wearing the military insignia of the Qin Empire. Obviously, he was an enemy. You are Lin Muyu? Mo Luo suddenly asked. Yo, you know me? Haha, your supreme head is mine. Come and take it if you can. Lin Muyu raised her long sword horizontally. With a confident smile on her face, she decisively attacked first. She silently recited the mental cultivation method of the invisible elephant spell. The Xianyuan sword directly swept out with the power of the overwhelming righteous aura and the chaos of all lives. Moreover, the force field of the invisible elephant spell completely controlled the surroundings. The opponent did not even have a chance to break the void and escape. Chapter 922. Emoluo was a four-winged angel. Even in the Western Heavens realm, he was a respected figure. In his own plane he was a godlike existence. Therefore, he naturally did not care about a divine king like Lin Muyu. Buzz buzz buzz. The light sword in his hand was filled with energy. He slammed it towards Lin Muyu's Xianyuan sword. Bang! Not only did Lin Muyu's sword carry the power of the chaotic element of the common life, it also borrowed the power of the earth in the forest. A mere first strike actually forcefully shook off Emoluo's light sword. Good. Tang Xiaoxi clapped and cheered. Don't be too happy yet. Emoluo sneered. His body was surrounded by the scorching sun, evaporating the rain and dew in the forest. Suddenly, there was a magnificent scene of clouds rising. The corner of his mouth curled up. He said, "That attack just now, I only used 30% of my strength. Don't be complacent too early. You will die a horrible death." Lin Muyu did not speak. She suddenly moved quickly. She used falling star step. Stepping on meteors, she moved around Emoluo at a speed that was hard to catch with the naked eye. Emoluo could not help but take a deep breath. What a fast movement technique. He had to stay calm and not rely on his eyes to judge. He had to rely on his aura. Otherwise, it would be difficult to block Lin Muyu's next attack. But it was still too late. Bang! Stepping on the void, Lin Muyu's figure shrouded in the light of the Xianyuan sword bloomed in the night sky. Blood-red energy flew up, and the two luminaries' demonic dance directly hit the opponent's back. Emoluo could not dodge or even turn around. He could only swing his sword to block from behind. Boom! The power of the seven planets clashed with the light elemental law divine power. This time, it was Lin Muyu who had the upper hand. Emoluo took a few steps forward, looking rather disheveled. However, when he turned around, Lin Muyu disappeared again. Her aura was completely gone, as if she had merged with the entire forest. Above, Emoluo hurriedly raised his head and held his sword horizontally. With an angry roar he rose from the ground and shouted, "Blaze light cut!" Amidst the buzzing sound, the celestial bodies of all living beings merged with the celestial bodies of the Xianyuan sword. When the power surged into the sword, Lin Muyu's confidence was boosted. The Xianyuan sword was indeed a divine weapon. The morality it contained had at least doubled the power of the third star. It then blasted down on Emoluo's head. Three luminaries' calamity. Violent sounds rang out incessantly, and the ground began to crack open. A tyrannical force swept out, uprooting the trees. As for the saplings, they were directly turned into powder. When the two swords collided, the power was in no way inferior to that of the magic crystal cannons. Qin Yin and Tang Xiaoxi stood in place unmoving. The strong wind blew against their divine walls, but it was unable to move them at all. As spectators, their strength was actually not inferior to the authorities. With the third sword, Emoluo was once again at a disadvantage. After the blaze light cut was neutralized, the power of Lin Muyu's third star continued to penetrate into Emoluo's divine walls. Furthermore, it was an overwhelming morality that Emoluo hated very much. Although he was a god, Emoluo had never cultivated his heart, but his physique. He hated this kind of hypocritical morality to the core. Lin Muyu was still moving quickly, looking for an opportunity to attack twice. For Luminary's demon god's cry. 5 luminaries 8 wastelands destruction. Emoluo was in an even more sorry state. He never thought that a dignified god emperor like himself would be repeatedly defeated by a god king. Even if his opponent had the disposition of a supreme being, it shouldn't be like this. Finally, Emoluo noticed the sword in Lin Muyu's hand and asked, "Your sword, what exactly is its origin?" "You don't need to know its origin. You only need to know that this is my ancestor's sword." "Ancestor?" Emoluo suddenly felt a burst of anger and roared, Die, you arrogant brat. He finally used 100% of his divine power. Everything in the surrounding forest started to evaporate, and even the gravitational field started to spin. Qin Yin and Tang Xiaoxi quietly stood in place, observing the power of the Western Heaven Realm's God Emperor. In the field, Lin Muyu also slowly flipped the Xianyuan sword. The long sword hummed in response. It seemed that the Xianyuan sword also hated Mo Luo, this vicious and evil god. This four-winged angel used his strength to bully the weak, and he was the only supreme being. He didn't cultivate as an immortal, but as a devil. Since he was a devil, then the Xianyuan sword had the right to exterminate devils. Pa pa pa. Streams of light blossomed on the Xianyuan sword. The world spun, and the universe reversed. Lin Muyu let out a low roar and activated the second strongest attack of the 7 stars. 6 stars Heavenly Tribulation. Boom. The huge ball of light expanded, tearing a huge hole in the ground. Waves of air rushed towards the surroundings. This time, Lin Muyu had used 100% of his divine power. Otherwise, it would be impossible to subdue this 71st Heaven Paradise four-winged angel. Jie. The 4 wings on Mo Luo's back were partially torn by the supreme divine power. His feathers fluttered in the air. His breathing was very rapid. This attack, even if he used all his strength, he couldn't gain the slightest bit of advantage from Lin Muyu. This 7 stars Heavenly Tribulation was powerful and overbearing. It was indeed not something that ordinary martial arts could compare to. Come, what other abilities do you have? Feel free to use them. Alright. Lin Muyu's blood vessels churned from the shock. A trace of blood even flowed out from the corner of his mouth. He stretched out his hand and touched a drop of blood. Immediately, the blood evaporated into a small ball of blood mist on his fingertip. The golden supreme divine power quickly rushed in and fused with the blood mist. Then it condensed into a large ball of blood-red light on the blade of the sword. Come. The most powerful attack was coming. Blood refining the firmament. This was an attack that was different from the 7 stars Heavenly Tribulation. It drew on the power of the stars and the explosive power of the bloodline. Mo Luo's soul trembled slightly. He knew how powerful this attack was. He hurriedly raised his light sword. His body danced in the air, creating a golden light wall. Like a folded sharp blade, he attacked Lin Muyu. He roared, "Light all slash!" The Xianyuan sword suddenly shone brightly. Buzz! Amidst the clanging sound of the sword, the blood refining the firmament broke through the opponent's light wall. Dang! A crisp sound rang out. Mo Luo's light sword was actually forcibly cut into 2 by the Xianyuan sword. Then the blood refining the firmament fell, directly smashing Mo Luo's divine wall. As the Xianyuan sword slashed down, Mo Luo's body was split into 2. However, he didn't become a corpse. Instead, he directly evaporated under the power of the blood refining the firmament. In the air, a dazzling godhead was floating there, glowing with light. With the power of the Xianyuan sword, Lin Muyu actually killed a god emperor in just 7 moves. So powerful. Tang Xiaoxi opened her mouth wide. So powerful, Mu. Qin Yin had a faint smile on her lips. She knew Lin Muyu's power. With the power of the Xianyuan sword, this result was actually expected. Clatter. Lin Muyu grabbed the godhead and put it into her pouch. This way, together with Bailey Qin's godhead, they now had 2 godheads of god emperors. Moreover, Mo Luo's godhead was actually a heavenly Dao godhead. It was very good. At this time, the sound of hooves could be heard. Wei Chou Su Jiantao came with light cavalry. They all looked at the forest that was already on fire, dumbfounded. What happened? What happened here? Su Jiantao asked. Wei Chou was also a god state expert, so his perception was stronger. He smiled and said, "Congratulations, Your Highness. It seems that Your Highness has just killed a god state expert." Lin Muyu nodded and said, "We did not guess wrong. The ruler of Western Heaven Realm did indeed send another batch of angels to Shattered Cauldron World. However, most of them were intercepted and killed by the 7 luminaries Demon Emperor. However, there were still some that slipped through the net. Although this Mo Luo is a god emperor, after being intercepted by the Demon Emperor, he lost at least 40% of his power. Otherwise, I would not have been able to kill him so easily. Qinin asked, "Brother, are you worried?" How can I not be worried? If a few more God Emperor level 4 winged angels appear, and we are not present, it will probably cause a series of disturbances. Tang Xiaoxi said, "We can only take one step at a time. Since everyone is awake, let's continue marching and reach the steel wall as soon as possible. There should be a bloody battle there." "Alright, pass down the order. Continue marching full speed." "Yes, Your Highness." After the sun rose, the fog dispersed rapidly. The water of the Rice River flowed slowly, and there were messy sounds amidst the gurgling water. The Tianji Empire's army on the east bank had finally gathered enough bamboo rafts and started to cross the river. Prepare for battle. Feng Jixing did not sleep the entire night and sat on the battlement in a daze. At this moment, he decisively gave a military order. He pressed his hand on the hilt of the Crimson Phoenix saber and said, "All magic crystal cannons, listen up. Aim at the place on the Rice River where there are the most people, but there are no dragon knights guarding the area. Don't King waste all the magic crystal cannons on the Dragon Imperial Spiral." "Yes, Your Highness Prince Exine." Everyone laughed out loud. The enemy was at the gates, and Feng Jixing's vulgar words made everyone feel more relaxed. After all, many of them were new soldiers and had never participated in a battle before. Looking at the densely packed crowd, some of them were so scared that their legs turned to jelly. If they did not take some measures, they would not be able to fight this battle. In the distance, the densely packed bamboo rafts started to cross the river. The magic crystal cannons on the city walls also started to fire. Boom, boom, boom. Many mushroom clouds were set off in the distance. The prowess of the magic crystal cannons was very great, and huge waves that were several meters tall immediately rose on the Rice River, overturning many of the bamboo rafts that were protected by the Dragon Imperial Spiral. Not all of the Tianji Empire's soldiers knew how to swim, and there were many cries for help. Zhang Wei laughed out loud. "There are so many people from the Tianji Empire. Will they never be able to finish all of them? Then let's continue. I want to see how many of them are worthy of death." Feng Jixing fell silent, his brows furrowed tightly. "What's wrong, Your Highness Prince Exine?" Scholar Ling asked. Feng Jixing looked at the army crossing the river on the Rice River and said, "I'm worried about something." "Oh, what is it?" Luo Yu was also interested. Feng Jixing said, "We've lost many of the magic crystal cannons in the hands of the Tianji Empire. And you see, when the steel wall was built, it was used to attack the demon race, and it was very close to the shore. That way, the demon race would be able to enter the shooting range of the white drill arrows when they reached the shore. But we neglected one thing, and that is that there were no magic crystal cannons at that time. Now the magic crystal cannons are getting better and better, and their shooting range is as high as 1,000 meters. If the people on the other side can use the magic crystal cannons, then they can directly bombard our steel wall on the other side." As he said that, Feng Jixing sighed. "As time goes on, the situation of the war will also change, and we have neglected this point." Luo Yu, Zhang Wei, Chu Chu, and the others' expressions changed drastically. It seemed that they finally understood the reason why Bai Minghuan hadn't launched the attack yet. He was waiting for the magic crystal cannons to be in position. "What are you waiting for?" Luo Yu raised her eyebrows and looked at everyone. "All the Eagle Scouts, go out and find out about the enemy's situation. Once you find the magic crystal cannons, report back immediately." Chapter 923. In the morning, a rumbling sound came from the north. Thick smoke rose from the purple mushroom cloud. The ground was shaking slightly. The steel defense wall that was at least 100 meters long was razed to the ground after nearly 10 consecutive cannon blasts. "I knew it." Feng Jixing clenched his teeth and shouted in a low voice, "Zhang Wei, take some men and block the gap. We can't let the Tianji army break through our defense line so easily. Behind us are the defenseless states and prefectures of Cangnan province. We can't let the Tianji army break through even if we all die here." "Yes." Zhang Wei, who was riding on the horse, saluted to Feng Jixing with his long saber. Then he led the cavalry and charged forward. Meanwhile, the Dragon Knight kept flying in the sky and released sword energy onto the city wall. The steel defense wall that was nearly 10 miles long had turned into a burning battlefield. Not far away, the Demon King, Ice Palm, Fire Fist, and other godly state experts had already started fighting with the Dragon Knights. Explosions of flames and divine power continuously rang out in the sky. Below the city, the densely packed army of the Tianji Empire had already blotted out the sky and covered the earth as they charged towards the Dragon Knights. Ladders, hooks, and other weapons danced chaotically in the air. The scene was extremely chaotic. In such a chaotic battlefield, the one who could remain calm would be the final winner. Feng Jixing. A sharp voice came from the sky. Feng Jixing looked up and saw a beautiful girl holding a long spear. She was wearing a battle angel costume and had 4 black wings spread behind her. She had a disdainful look on her face. Her long spear was shining brightly. In the next moment, she dashed over like a sharp arrow, aiming at the city wall where Feng Jixing was standing. It's dual law. Feng Jixing raised his 2 sabers and charged out of the city wall without saying anything. He waved his sabers and a fierce firestorm was stirred up. The saber energy was hidden in the storm and flew out invincibly. Dozens of soldiers of the Tianji army, who were pushing ladders, were turned into ashes immediately. Buzz. Amidst the sounds of collision, Dora's Tig's spear forcefully tore apart the energy field of the Sky Devourer. The surrounding time seemed to have come to a standstill, but Dora's figure accelerated quite a bit. In the blink of an eye, he appeared in front of Feng Jixing and thrust his spear forward like the fangs of a venomous snake. In the time it takes for a spark to fly off a flint, Feng Jixing swept out the clear dragon blade in his left hand and formed an endless wall of wind. Dang! It collided with Dugas' long spear. Suddenly, a tyrannical divine wave swept out and caused Feng Jixing's blood to boil. He fell down with a muffled groan and forcibly crashed into the city wall. He was battered and exhausted, and he spat out a mouthful of blood. He had already lost. Duo La let out a delicate cry, and her figure shot forward like a bolt of lightning again. However, just when she was about 10 meters away from him, a silhouette flew over. It was Scholar Ling. He raised a wrist guard in his hand and shouted in a low voice, "Myriad World of Frost." Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. Heaven and earth were activated. This was a divine book, and a hexagonal frost wall appeared in front of her. Then more frost walls exploded on top of the wall, and they surged forward like a chain array. Duo La had no choice but to hold her spear and retreat. The pitiful hundreds of Tianji army soldiers below her were all frozen into ice cubes. They had already died in battle, and it was a tragic sight to behold. Duo La looked at the chain of explosions, and she couldn't help but gasp. At this moment, an old man in a white robe descended from the sky. He raised his hand slightly, and it seemed as if he was drawing the power of all the living beings in the surrounding forest. The green leaves danced wildly and condensed into a shield. Energy enshrouded the shield, and even the river behind him became even more turbulent. It was Chu Chu. He was the only one who had comprehended the laws of nature to this extent. Scholar Ling raised another divine book in his hand, and his eyes were filled with mockery. He smiled and said, "Duo La, you were fortunate enough to receive the inheritance of the black-winged battle angel. Why don't you cherish your life? Your Highness Feng Jixing, use your dimensional blade. I want to see if Duo La can continue to act fierce if the 3 of us work together." All right. Feng Jixing still wanted to use Duo La's power to intimidate others. He held his 2 blades horizontally, and electric currents surged around him. Gusts of dimensional wind appeared. Although Feng Jixing's divine power was much weaker than Duo La's, unknown power would always create a psychological pressure on people. Duo La looked coldly at Chu Chu, and then at Scholar Ling. What shocked her even more was that not far away, a huge creature was tearing apart a dragon knight and his dragon in the air, roaring incessantly. It was the Demon King. The Demon King's strength was comparable to an expert who had just entered the God Emperor realm. This was no joke. Although Duo La was proud and arrogant, she definitely didn't have the confidence to challenge so many people with just her 4-wing strength. Since when did the Shattered Cauldron realm have so many experts? She muttered to herself, and disappeared with the Dig's spear. In the blink of an eye, she appeared in the chariot formation 3 miles away. The war drums thundered. Bai Ming Huan, Gong Shangming, Lin Tongtian, and the rest were on the main chariot, watching the battle from afar. Miss Duola, how is the battle? Bai Ming Huan asked respectfully with a smile. Duola said, other than Feng Jixing, there are a few monsters that are ridiculously strong. Among them, there is a huge beast with very strong spirit energy. I'm afraid that even the Dig's spear might not be able to defeat it. Other than that, there is another person who took out a very powerful heavenly book. I don't know where it came from, but it is very powerful. Marshall should have seen it too. Yes. Bai Ming Huan said. That person is Scholar Ling, a genius who specializes in all kinds of heavenly books. Unfortunately, he can't be used by me, and is just a dog of Lin Muyu. As for that monster, it is the Beeman King, one of the White Leaf Four Masters. Although it is an idiot, it is born with great strength, and cannot be underestimated. Miss Duola, you don't need to be anxious. We just need to sit and watch. Their steel wall has already been destroyed by us by hundreds of meters. As long as our brave warriors break through their defense line, they will collapse on their own. Duola nodded, but then asked, Marshal, don't you want to go to the battlefield yourself and kill Feng Jixing with your own hands? One Feng Jixing's life or death is not enough to change the overall situation. There is no need to rush. Bai Ming Huan narrowed his eyes and said, moreover, our scouts have reported that Lin Muyu, Xiyin, Tang Xiaoxi, and Su Jiantao have already led 60,000 soldiers into Tsangnan province. They will arrive at the battlefield in half a day at most. It is better not to act rashly. Haha. Duola suddenly laughed. She already knew that on the South Mountain battlefield, famous warriors like Bai Liqin and Han Shu had all died. Although Bai Ming Huan was a god emperor, he was just a warrior who had just entered the god emperor realm. Compared to Bai Liqin, who was close to the peak of the 90 realm, how could Bai Ming Huan not be afraid? After all, cultivation was for longevity and glory. Bai Ming Huan did not want to die so early. Instead of going to the battlefield himself, it was better to exchange the lives of ants for a victory. The difference between a god and a human was that they understood the power of the god realm. But there was one thing that was the power of a god would be used up. Bai Ming Huan only wanted to exchange the lives of the Tianji army for the lives of a god. Even 10,000 people for one god was worth it. At this moment, a dragon knight descended from the sky and said respectfully, Marshal, someone from Winterfrost City wants to see you. From Winterfrost City? Who is it? He claims to be an angel from the Western Heaven realm. Oh, Bai Ming Huan frowned. Ask him to come. Yes. The soldiers with shields in their hands scattered, and a man came riding over on a horse. He was wearing a tattered robe, and his face was covered with scars that looked like he had been burned. He jumped off the horse and walked onto the chariot step by step with a cold look in his eyes. He stopped in front of Bai Ming Huan, his face expressionless. How dare you? A dragon knight scolded. Who are you? Why aren't you bowing to the marshal? Bai Ming Huan raised his hand to stop him. Wait. He looked at the newcomer and smiled. Who are you? Please show your identity. Me. The newcomer smiled arrogantly and said, Since you want to know, I'll do as you wish. Open your eyes and see who I am. As he spoke, he let out a low roar, and his body instantly shot into the sky like a god that had descended into the world. Moreover, 2 pairs of pure white wings of light unfolded behind him. Shockingly, he was a 4-winged radiant angel. Radiant angels were very respected even in the Western Heaven realm. For example, high-level gods like Li Fei and Merlin who were at least level 90 grotto heavens were all radiant angels. A powerful force field surrounded them. Bai Ming Huan was instantly covered in sweat. His heart was filled with respect, and he could not help but kneel on one knee. Lower world, Bai Ming Huan greets Lord Radiant Angel. The Radiant Angel smiled in satisfaction and retracted his aura. My name is Zai, 90 grotto heavens, Radiant Angel under Ruler Claude. I'm also the only Radiant Angel in this exile mission. Unfortunately, We fell into the trap of the 7 luminaries demon emperor. Most of the angels have fallen, and I don't know how many are still alive. So it's Lord Zai, Radiant Angel. My apologies. Bai Minghuan's face was ashen as he lowered his head. A Radiant Angel was enough to control dozens of dimensions. Bai Minghuan, a marshal, was really nothing in front of Zai. Zai's gaze fell on Dora, Luo Fei, and the other battle angels nearby. Looking at the Tig's spear, Zai said lightly, "You're Dora?" "Yes, Lord Radiant Angel." Dora's arrogance was much more restrained. After all, Zai's identity was too noble. Zai sneered. "What a bunch of trash. Lord Ruler sent 10 of you to Shattered Cauldron Realm, but you still haven't made any progress after so long. How disappointing." Dora frowned. "Lord, there's a reason for this. It's only because Xiyin betrayed us and brought Terralyn, Lake, and the other battle angels to the enemy. Otherwise, we wouldn't have had so little success so far. Xiyin betrayed us." Zai was shocked. She's Blazing Angel Xiyan's sister. However, she has another identity. She is Empress Qin of the Shattered Cauldron Realm. She was reborn after the 6 paths of reincarnation. She deceived Lady Xiyan, deceived the ruler, and deceived everyone. Humph, this despicable woman. Zai clenched his fists. "I'll kill her myself." Chapter 924. Bai Minghuan. Zai suddenly turned and looked at the general. Bai Minghuan hurriedly bowed. "Your subordinate is here, Lord Zai. Which country do you belong to?" "The Tianji Empire." "How many people do you have now?" "Nearly 300,000. "How many people do they have?" "About less than 200,000. "Humph." Zai swung his sleeves and said with a livid face, "What a piece of trash. Didn't you claim that the Sky Pole continent is the strongest lower realm? You can't even take down a broken cauldron realm. Not to mention that you have more soldiers. You're such a disappointment. If you can't be the general, I think we should replace you." Bai Minghuan's face was pale. "Lord Zai, please listen to me. My army's attacks are getting fiercer and fiercer. In less than a day, we will break through this damn steel wall." "Steel wall?" "Yes." Bai Minghuan pointed at the chaotic battlefield in the west. "Lord Zai, please look. The Broken Cauldron Realm has built a steel defense line along the river. They call it the Steel Wall. It's 20 meters tall, and ordinary ladders and hooks can't compare to it. That's why we can't do anything. But now that we have the magic crystal cannons, this steel wall is nothing." Zai looked at him coldly, making Bai Minghuan's hair stand on end. "Lord Zai, what's wrong?" "Humph." Zai sneered. "I can see that you have the cultivation of a god emperor. But you're actually so weak. How can a mere mortal realm's iron wall stop you?" "Lord Zai, get out of my way." Zai looked at him coldly. "I'll help you flatten this steel wall. If you can't break through the Broken Cauldron Realm's defense line in one day, then kill yourself." "Lord you." Before Bai Minghuan could finish, Zai had already regrown his 4 wings and flew towards the steel wall. He stood on the river and took out his sword, pointing it at the wall. Zai gave a devilish smile and laughed. "Ants building break." Buzz. Rays of light that soared into the sky gathered together. In the blink of an eye, a huge wheel appeared beneath Midnight's feet. It was actually a divine wheel. That's right, the unique ability of an emperor god with 90 levels of Grotto Heaven Great Circle. Divine wheel. On the city wall, Feng Jixing and the others felt a strong sense of oppression. Looking from afar, the person on the river had already slashed out with his sword. His divine wheel whizzed over. "Be careful." Without another word, Feng Jixing also struck out with a dimensional storm. However, it was clear that he was unable to contend against a divine wheel. Chu Chu bellowed and raised his hand to summon his strongest power. The trees on the ground were uprooted and formed a natural barrier. Scholar Ling was anxious. He took out a heavenly book and shouted, "Don't resist. You can't. Follow me and move." The sky suddenly lit up, and the heavenly book of the law of space brought everyone away from this section of the city wall. After moving about 500 meters away, everyone looked back and saw an extremely tragic scene. The steel wall that was nearly 300 meters long collapsed in an instant, and was directly razed to the ground by the opponent's spirit wheel. Countless imperial soldiers on the city wall, and inside the city had already been turned into flesh and blood, and most of them had been turned into ashes. It's a divine wheel. Scholar Ling frowned. Chu Chu remained silent. Feng Jixing gritted his teeth and said, "Damn the Western Heaven Realm. Did they send someone again?" Scholar Ling said, "To be able to use a divine wheel, it must be at least a great perfection God Emperor at the 90th Grotto Heaven stage. This is really troublesome. The steel wall most likely can't hold on anymore." "No, we must hold on." Feng Jixing's eyes were bloodshot. "I can't let Her Highness in, and you see us abandoning the Empire's last line of defense. Even if I die here, I won't allow it." "Su Hao, how often can you use your divine wheel?" "It depends on your cultivation. Ordinary great perfection God Emperors can use their divine will once every 4 hours. If they use it too frequently, their cultivation will be damaged." 4 hours. That's enough. Feng Jixing carried his blades and flew up. He stood in the air above the broken city wall and shouted, "What are you waiting for? Block the gap and resist them. Magic crystal cannons, magic crystal crossbows, arrow boxes. Don't save ammunition for me. Fire. Attack." The resistance on the city wall became more intense. Luo Yu led the infantry and cavalry to form a human wall around the broken city wall. They fought with the Flowing Spirit Army and the God Yi Army who were trying to break into the defensive line. Above the river, Zai frowned. The Qin army's tenacity was beyond his imagination. Beside him, the 3 battle angels Duo La, Luo Fei, and Duo Li flew over. Duo La smiled and said, "Sir Zai, the Qin army's courage is commendable. It's a pity that they are too weak. Thanks to Sir Zai's attack, I think our army will be able to break through their defensive line soon." Zai snorted and did not say anything. He was a strange person. His arrogance was even higher than Duo La's. 20 miles away, the 60,000 soldiers entered the Unicorn Forest. Returning to the old land made everyone feel a myriad of emotions. Qin Yin closed her eyes. Her eyelashes trembled slightly. She muttered, "The battle is very intense. The steel protective wall has already been damaged in many places." Her cultivation was very high. Ever since she obtained the Eyes of Blazing Light, she had relied on her spiritual perception. Hence, her spiritual perception was much more sensitive than others of the same cultivation. Just from the tremors and auras coming from the ground, she could basically determine the situation of the battlefield. Lin Muyu gently stroked Taksha's mane, telling her not to be so anxious. They were indeed getting closer and closer to the battlefield. Looking into the distance, they could even see the rising smoke in the sky. That was the masterpiece of the magic crystal cannons. "Let's hope they can withstand it," Zhen Yifan said. At that moment, Su Jiantao galloped over on his horse. He said respectfully, "Your Highnesses, we just received news from our scouts. Baiming Huan's 300,000 soldiers are almost all out. There are only about 20,000 soldiers and 50,000 backup soldiers left behind. These backup soldiers are basically the surrendered soldiers or citizens of the Empire. They don't have much fighting power." "You want to raid the food camp?" Lin Muyu asked with a smile. "Yes," Su Jiantao said. "Food is the foundation of an army. An army of 300,000 soldiers consumes at least 1 million kilograms of food every day, and at least 500,000 kilograms of vegetables. The food of the Tianji Empire is basically looted from Winterfrost City and the nearby cities, so it won't be much. As long as we burn their food, they won't be able to fight for long. Once they have the intention to retreat, our army can pursue them." Lin Muyu smiled. Su Jiantao seemed to have matured into a true general who could take charge of an area by himself. Which famous general did not plan for their rations all day long? That was a basic quality of life. "Tell me, how are you going to raid them?" Su Jiantao said. "We can't send too many people. 5,000 light cavalrymen will be enough. We'll split up from here and bring along some kindling. We'll rely on the war horses to swim across the river. However, we must restrain the enemy on the main battlefield. Otherwise, these 5,000 people will be easily hunted down by the Dragon Knights or Godly State experts. Don't worry. Lin Muyu raised her eyebrows and said, Xiao Yin Xiao Shi, and I will go to the main battlefield to keep the enemy busy. You and Wei Chou will lead 5,000 light cavalries there. Listen to my orders. Don't come back. After burning their granaries, immediately head east and burn all their food teams and supplies. It will take at least 5 days to get to Winterfrost City from here. Since Bai Ming Huan dares to come, I will starve his 100,000 men to death. As she said that, Lin Muyu pulled out a token arrow from a guard's hand and said, Wei Chou Su Jiantao, listen to my orders. I will allow you two to act according to the situation. Once you enter the east of the river, I will not give you any orders anymore. You two can act on your own, and cause as much damage as you can to their rear. Don't worry about anything. In this battle, not only will I crush the Tianji Empire on the river, I will also make them suffer heavy casualties on their way back from Sungnan Province to Lingdong Province. Yes, Your Highness. The two generals knelt down together. After receiving the token arrow, they immediately chose their men and left. Meanwhile, Lin Muyu looked into the distance and said, Speed up the march. The main battlefield needs our strength. Also, where is Xiling's secret weapon? In the middle of the army, led by dozens of wild warriors. Tang Xiaoxi smiled and said, that's good. Although the secret weapon might not be of real use, it could at least deter the celestial pole continent, right? In the afternoon, the 50,000 men under Lin Muyu finally reached the steel wall. Looking from afar, the steel wall had already collapsed for a long time, and the two sides were engaged in a close combat under the wall. Roar, roar, roar! Among the rubble, the roars of the tiger leopard cavalry were very ear-piercing. After tearing apart a group of imperial soldiers, they immediately rushed toward the back of the unicorn forest. That was the camp for the wounded soldiers, and it was also the temporary location of the spiritual medicine department where Chu Ya was. Lin Muyu immediately pulled out the Xianyuan sword and shouted, Kill them! Don't let them get close to the camp for the wounded soldiers. Duke Fan, Aunt Lian, you two immediately lead the main force to reinforce Big Brother Feng Jixing. Amidst the sound of hooves, Lin Muyu led a group of elite cavalrymen and rushed over. The Xianyuan sword was very sharp, and it emitted many sword energies. In the blink of an eye, she killed a group of tiger leopard cavalry single-handedly. By the time Qin Yin and Tang Xiaoxi arrived with the banished army, the army of nearly 3,000 tiger leopard cavalry had already fallen apart. Kill them! In the distance, another group of Tianji army broke through the defensive line and rushed over. There were over 10,000 cavalrymen and heavy cavalrymen, and they rushed over majestically. Xiao Yin, Lin Muyu said in a low voice, it's time to use your power. Qin Yin suddenly left her original position and flew into the sky in the next moment. She opened the eyes of Flaming Dawn, and the enemies on the ground were instantly set ablaze. Those cavalrymen and heavy cavalrymen didn't dare to look directly at the eyes of Flaming Dawn. They were dumbfounded as if their souls had been electrocuted. Dozens of seconds later, the heavy cavalrymen of the Longdan army camp swept across the battlefield like the autumn wind sweeping away the fallen leaves. On the city wall, Feng Jixing and the others saw the scene in the distance. Feng Jixing couldn't help but tremble with excitement. He laughed and said, Brothers, Her Highness the Empress is back. Her Highness Yin is back. She is fighting side by side with us. Everyone raised their weapons and shouted. Their morale was instantly raised. Chapter 925. The steel wall continued to collapse under the roar of the magic crystal cannons. The gap was getting bigger and bigger. In the blink of an eye, the more than 50,000 people brought back by Lin Muyu and Qin Yin had all gone to block the gap. Meanwhile, the hundreds of thousands of people led by Feng Jixing, Chen Xiaoli, Qin Yan and others were also fighting with the enemy in the city. The entire defense line of the steel wall was no longer organized. It was completely like a pot of boiling soup. The only order was probably the thousands of people personally led by Feng Jixing and Lin Muyu. Under Feng Jixing's order, Nearly 10 different-sized Qianquan battle formations were gathered at the gap of the city to resist the attack of the Tianji Empire's army. Meanwhile, Lin Muyu led thousands of iron hooves to attack the enemy who crossed the steel wall wantonly like a sharp knife. They strangled the powerful enemies who were besieging the city from inside and outside. In the sky, Qin Yin held the star's sword and spread her wings behind her. She led the 3 battle angels, Terralin, Lake and Zhou Shimin, to kill the dragon knights of the Tianji Empire. In the blink of an eye, at least 7 to 8 dragon knights were killed by the eyes of blazing dawn. In addition to the roaring sound of the machines behind them, 2 chariots followed the footsteps of Qin Yin and Tang Xiaoxi, under the protection of the army of the Land of Exile. They launched artillery attacks at the shield formation of the Tianji Empire in the distance. Swoosh! The sound of the explosion seemed to have come from underground, and the low rumble was deafening in the blink of an eye. It was the particle cannon, the only high-tech cannon in the banished land that had been preserved in perfect condition. Unfortunately, this was the only one left, otherwise it would have been of great use. Everyone get on the city wall and shoot at your targets. A leader shouted. We have pledged allegiance to the Dark Moon Queen. It's time to bleed for the Queen. In the blink of an eye, hundreds of experts from the Land of Exile rushed up the city wall with origin guns and sniper rifles in hand. They had all changed into the armor of the Qin Empire, but their weapons were different. The soldiers on the city wall were all shocked. They gave way and allowed these freaks to help defend the city wall. Soon, gunshots rang out one after another from the city wall. The experts from the Land of Exile only aimed at the generals of the Tianji Empire, who were commanding the attack. They even shot the Kiliarchs and captaincy who were 700 to 800 meters away. In the blink of an eye, the pressure on the defensive line within several hundred meters had collapsed. The Tianji army who had lost their commanders were like headless flies. They were captured and killed one by Feng Jixing's net. Boom. With another 2 loud explosions, the wall between the 2 gaps was also razed to the ground by the magic crystal cannons. The imperial soldiers on the city wall were almost vaporized by the power of the magic crystal cannons. It was too horrible to look at. In this way, there was a gap as long as 1,000 meters in the steel wall. It was a bit scary. In the distance, the bugle sounded. It was the signal of the Tianji Empire to attack. Countless beast cavalrymen and heavy cavalrymen swam across the water on their mounts. Dozens of dragon knights flew in the air to cover them. In the blink of an eye, they formed a battle formation of at least 50,000 people. This was also the most powerful attack the Tianji Empire could gather in the chaos. Charge! A general of the Divine Cloth Army who had lost an arm roared loudly. The army surged forward like a tide, constantly attacking the Qianquan battle formation that Feng Jixing had set up. Hence, in less than 10 minutes, it was like a tsunami crashing against a low dam. After all, the Qianquan battle formation was formed by manpower. How could a battle formation of 2,000 people block 50,000 people? When the Qianquan battle formation was completely destroyed, it meant that the biggest gap in the steel wall was also lost. Bastard! Feng Jixing descended from the sky with his dual blades. Swoosh, 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 swoosh. He consecutively slashed out dozens of times, causing the cyclone to expand. There were no living people within dozens of meters of him, but it still couldn't stop the enemy's charge. His eyes were bloodshot, and he had used up a lot of his divine power. He shouted, "Are you there about to break through the defense line?" In the distance, Lin Muyu waved the Xianyuan sword and came over with thousands of troops. She said, "I know. Use the magic crystal crossbows and the tomes of heaven to kill them. They are all used up. The shells of the magic crystal cannons are almost used up." Damn. Lin Muyu complained secretly. She never thought that the Qin Empire would run out of supplies after only half a day of the enemy's general attack. Now they could only rely on manpower. As long as they blocked the gap and relied on the long-range sniping of the troops from the exile land brought by Qin Yin, they could defeat the main force of the Tianji Empire. After all, they were on an expedition. If they couldn't take down the enemy after a long time, the morale of the army would be in chaos. Lin Muyu's voice was deep. While leading the cavalry of the Longdan army camp to charge, He concentrated his divine power into his voice line and shouted in a low voice, "All soldiers of the Empire who can still move, take your weapons and join me, Lin Muyu's battle formation. Let's charge together. Even if we die on the battlefield, we will never be bullied again." The appeal of his roar was so strong that Lin Muyu's reputation in the Imperial Army could be said to be like the sun at high noon. It had even surpassed Feng Jixing's. Lin Muyu was the real king in the hearts of the soldiers of the Empire. What an honor it was to follow the Qin Emperor Lin Muyu to charge and break through enemy lines. Even if they died, were defeated, or ended up disabled, at least their lives would not be in vain. At least when they talked to their grandchildren in old age, they could proudly say that they had once followed the imperial martial god to charge and break through enemy lines. Therefore, the defeated, injured, and disordered soldiers of the Empire picked up their weapons one after another. They looked for war horses and shields to arm themselves. Then, like a trickle of water, they gathered around the Longdan army camp. Even many wounded soldiers in the wounded barracks had already picked up their spears and jumped on their horses to join the battle. More and more people gathered, and in the blink of an eye, they had gathered into a battle formation of nearly 50,000 people and rushed straight to the enemy. As they got closer and closer to the enemy, the roars of the tiger leopard cavalry continued. Lin Muyu knew that the enemy in front of him was one of the most elite armies of the Tianji Empire. It was a gathering of the best of the Shini army and the Liuji army. Buzz, the Xianyuan sword, the Divine Path sword, was stained with a lot of blood, but now it was like a holy sword fighting for freedom and dignity. The clanging sound was endless, and as Lin Muyu concentrated his divine power, it shone brightly. As he waved it, he directly struck a tyrannical chaos of the common people, sweeping the turf and soil towards the enemy. For a moment, the enemy was badly mutilated, and people and horses were thrown off their feet. Nature of nature. After the chaos of the common people, Lin Muyu immediately raised his left arm and raised his hand to strike the elephant wheel shuttle. With a swoosh, the bottom of the elephant wheel cut through the ground and rushed forward, directly creating a vacuum in the battle formation of the tiger leopard cavalry. All the enemies along the way were turned into corpses. At this moment, Lin Muyu was like a killing god in the mortal world. Acatosaurus, come out and help the battle. Along with the roar, the little dragon shook its head and appeared. As soon as it appeared, it sprinkled a dragon's breath in the battle formation, burning a group of beast cavalry to death. Then it raised its neck and roared. The majesty of the divine dragon was displayed, and the group of tiger leopard cavalry almost stopped in their tracks. The tiger leopard cavalry was just the king of the jungle, but the little apple was the noble king of all beasts. The sound of collisions did not stop. In the blink of an eye, the tens of thousands of people led by Lin Muyu clashed with the enemy's 50,000 people. Dust flew everywhere. When two sides met on a narrow path, the brave would win. Whoever was the first to retreat would be the loser. Both sides wanted to be the winner, so this achievement of 1,000 years would inevitably be paved with corpses and lives. Above the city, Feng Jixing wielded his twin sabers with an ashen face. He strode in front of a dozen magic crystal cannons and shouted in a low voice, "Why aren't you firing? What are you waiting for?" Achillearcha's face was covered in blood and sweat. He cupped his fists and said, "Your Highness, the cannons are too hot. They need at least 30 minutes to cool down. Otherwise, the temperature will be enough to directly detonate the magic crystal cannons. Moreover, we only have 3 magic crystal cannons left. We are truly powerless. Your Highness, please investigate. This is a battlefield. Don't use such cowardly words to explain to me." Feng Jixing was indeed swift and decisive. He shouted to the people behind him, "Stargazer, supply the magic crystal cannons you brought with you to them. I will cool down these magic crystal cannons." "Yes, Your Highness." Stargazer nodded. Zhang Wei quickly raised his hand and brought out the last magic crystal cannons in the Imperial Army's inventory. Feng Jixing carried the azure dragon saber and came to the side of the magic crystal cannons. He roared in a low voice and circulated the law of ice to cool down the cannons. However, he also knew that he couldn't cool them down too quickly. Otherwise, the steel of the magic crystal cannons might not be able to withstand such a degree of cold and hot exchange. After nearly a minute, the magic crystal cannons were no longer burning hot. Feng Jixing stretched out his hand and pointed at the gap in the steel wall on the right. He said, "Look, they are all people from the Tianji Empire. Her Highness Yin and Princess She have all escaped from the Dragon Knights. Immediately open fire with all your might. Kill as many people as you can." Yes. The cannons roared. More than a dozen mushroom clouds rose from the gap in the steel wall that was nearly a kilometer long. Shock waves swept out in all directions. Without the protection of the Dragon Imperial battle ring, the Tianji Empire's army was only made of flesh and blood. They were blown to pieces, and it was a tragic sight. Again, continuous cannons. Feng Jixing said loudly, "Her Highness Yu is fighting a bloody battle at the bottom of the city. All you can do is to reduce the pressure. This is a battle for your dignity as artillerymen." Within 5 minutes, 3 consecutive cannons were already the limit that the magic crystal cannons could withstand. At the same time, the Imperial Army's last stock of cannons was almost used up. At this moment, Qin Yin's voice sounded in Feng Jixing's ears. "General Feng, be careful. Someone is coming." In the distance, a group of God State warriors flew straight over. At the front was a middle-aged man with 2 pairs of holy wings on his back. The sharp sword in his hand shone brightly. Behind him were Bai Minghuan, Dora Lin Tongtian, Luo Fei, and the others. Finally, the Tianji Empire's strongest force was going to be mobilized. Feng Jixing couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air. Damn it! Is that the radiant angel Midnight? Terralyn looked into the distance in disbelief. That's me, Terralyn. Midnight actually heard Terralyn's words from afar. With an indifferent expression on his face he said, "Terralyn, you are the successor of the Radiant clan. Don't be stubborn. Do you know that you are helping our enemy?" "Xiyin is my friend." Terralyn slowly pulled out her sharp sword and said, "There is nothing wrong with fighting for a friend." Midnight shouted coldly in a low voice, "In that case, I will no longer care about my friendship with your father. I will help the Western Heaven Realm to clean up the mess." The golden light soared into the sky, and an invisible force spread out, causing everyone to be shocked. "It's a spirit wheel." Lake's voice was trembling. After all, he was only a god king. In the face of such a powerful spirit wheel, the fear came from the bottom of his heart and couldn't be suppressed. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.